morning, everyone. It is Saturday, which means it's time for yet another Salty Saturday morning. I am your belabored producer, host, Matthew Kadish from the Salty Nerd Podcast. Introducing our paired back panel for today. We got Matt Vader 74. How you doing, buddy?
I'm here. I am not queer, and I'm ready to go. So we have no shield today.
Yeah, that's right.
You want me to pretend? Hi.
Yeah.
Hi. Hi, Matthew. You're cute.
Just switch the gender switch. And,
okay. Yeah, no, I can't do that. I don't know how Brian does it every week.
Yeah, so for those of you who are wondering where the rest of the panel is, so first of all, Brian from the Popcast, he had a event that he couldn't get out of today, so he's not going to be joining us for this live stream. Odin is going to be joining us late, possibly, if he decides to join us. I think he's traveling today, so he basically just said, once I get home, I'll be able to hop on. Tom Connors is sleeping off a bender, apparently, so he's not going to be on today. But we have WDW Pro to pick up the slack. How you doing today, WDW?
That's why nobody's here. I see what's going on. Did I forget my deodorant? Hang on a second. Oh, wait a minute. Apologies to everybody out there if you're using the Smell-O-Vision feature on YouTube.
Yes, Smell-O-Vision. Gotta love how YouTube just keeps innovating. But WDW, that's quite the mouthful. So would you
just call me Pro? Yes. All my friends call me Pro.
So I was actually going to refer to you as Dub. So
that is a Views with Hughes moniker that he has come up with is Dubs.
Dubs.
I think we need to run some kind of campaign to audition people who actually want to come on the show on a weekly basis, because I'm sure there's some people out there that would actually bother to show up on time and when they're supposed to, right?
Well, fun fact. So Brian has been very good about showing up. I can't.
He has. I'll cut him a little slack.
At least last time he didn't show up, he sent Shane in his place. So we've got someone there. And Odin, he just hops on whenever he's not forced to eat pineapple. And Tom's on every live stream ever. So
Culture Casino. You turn on a live stream, it doesn't matter what it is. They could be doing charcuterie boards, and he's there.
Exactly. But before we get going, I just want to give shout outs to everyone who was kind enough to show up this early in the chat. We got Anthony Mark coming at us from the beach, no doubt. We got Concho Dragon. We got Danny's mom, Penny. We do have your check. One of the interesting things about cashing a check as a business is that you need to stamp the back with a special stamp before the bank accepts it. So I had to dig that out and find it because we don't really cash a lot of checks, but we will cash that check, Penny. Don't worry about it. We got our super sticker superstar, Gavin Blackburn. We got No Money G in the chat. We have one of our Saturday superstars, the Astronerdboy is here. We got Keely Chow. We have Nut Bunny. And Orwell's son, Thrasher 613, Darth Maul. We got Kenneth LaRoque, Films 5555, WDW Pro. You're in the chat as well. Welcome.
Hey, how about that?
Yeah, we got Mighty Orbots and Mr. Farnsworth, and finally Chef Nick Nero. Thank you all so much for being here this morning. We really appreciate it. And now it's time to introduce our members for our leaderboard for the day. So we got our Saturday superstars, Scotty Dub, Bob Dorsey, and the Astronerdboy. Scotty Dub outbid himself to get the top spot for $499.99. Then we have our regular, most consistent super chatters, Joker's Voice and Mexican Iron Man. Really appreciate those guys. And our super thanks superstars, who are Backyard TARDIS and JT Gunn. Now, fun fact, Scotty Dub gave us $100 super thanks. Because he missed out on the Tuesday live stream where Astronerdboy and Bob Dorsey were dropping $100 super chats. But unfortunately, I can't replace either Backyard TARDIS or JT Gunn because the super thanks is based off of how many super thanks you've given, not how much in super thanks you've given. So technically, Scotty's only given us one super thanks. So,
are you making these up? Are you making the rules up as you go along?
I've been very clear on this. But for the $100 club, we got Scotty Dub, Bob Dorsey, and the Astronerdboy. So if you guys want to be featured on the live stream, all you need to do is donate $100. Get your name down there.
So I can donate $1 45 times and be the number one thinker. Is that what you're saying?
Yep.
Okay. All right.
I don't think you can super thanks $1, but
whatever.
It's all about consistency.
Okay. All right.
It's all about the Benjamins.
Yeah. And our top contributor, Scotty Dub, the guy who has supported the channel more than anyone else in terms of like the super chats and stuff like that. Thank you, Scotty. Really appreciate it. We know you're busy, so you can't always join the live streams, but you are here in spirit, and we really, really appreciate that. And just so you guys know, if you want to drop us any super chats throughout the course of the live stream, we will stop and read them, and we will also put your name on the ticker down below, just to thank you for being engaged and all that good stuff. And also, I want to point out that we are live streaming to not only YouTube, but we're also on our Facebook page. Our Facebook page has really been growing. We're at over 1,000 followers on Facebook right now.
Hey, congratulations.
Thank you. And that's just on our page. We actually have a group that we're posting a lot of stuff in, and we're very active in the community over there. We also are now live streaming to Twitter in preparation for Twitter's big shift over into video. So if you follow us over on Twitter, you can go check us out over there. I don't really like watching videos on Twitter.
Wait a second. I don't mean to interrupt you, but how do you do that on Twitter? I run our Twitter account and I don't see it. How does that work?
It's like a lumberjack turning to you and saying, "By the way, how's this thing work over here?"
Works like magic. Yes, exactly.
No, I legit want to know.
We're also on Twitch and Kick. I know Odin was tweeting this morning about what the hell is Kick. Kick is a Twitch competitor, so it's also a live streamer. And we're also on Odyssey and Rumble, although Rumble doesn't make it easy to live stream to them because they got some weird technology over there. But if you don't like YouTube, check us out over on Rumble. So we got a lot of places where you can check out our content, but we appreciate the people who are here on YouTube coming in, giving us super chats and participating in the chat. And we kicked off today with Gavin Blackburn for £1.49 super sticker. Wow. Really appreciate that. Yeah, he upped it. It's normally just 99 pence.
No, I was more impressed with how you said that. That was very fancy.
Well, I was educated last Tuesday where I was like, Gavin dropped a 99 pence super sticker, and I was like, I don't even know, like, those aren't cents. I don't know how to pronounce that. And actually, no, it was our last Saturday live stream where we had the Primal guy on, Primal Ramblings.
Yeah.
And he was like, it's pronounced pence.
I need somebody from Sweden to drop like $1.37. And so I can watch Kadish try to say that.
It's krones, right?
It's like $1 krone and 37 Flügenklugers or something weird. I don't know. I don't know what they're even called. Yeah. So,
before we get into everything here, Astronerdboy is saying that he's not seeing anything on Twitch either. Well, technically, StreamYard should be streaming to Twitch and Twitter. I know that I have seen on Twitter, maybe it's after the live stream's over that it gets uploaded to Twitter or something like that. I don't know, but I have seen us on Twitter before, so I know it works. Just not quite sure exactly how. But before we get going with the topics for today's show, I just wanted to talk to WDW for a little bit because
not to be confused, by the way, with an establishment that sells chicken wings.
Exactly, B-dubs. Your channel kind of came to my attention recently. Like there are two creators out there, Valiant Renegade and yourself, who've been very excellent about just kind of covering like all the nonsense with Disney and their business dealings and all that other stuff. I think after I saw the last earnings call where Bob Iger actually got kind of like skewered by the call-ins, that was the thing that kind of brought you guys.
He said, "Hey, those nut jobs are actually right about this. Wait a minute."
Well, I was just, it's kind of the same thing that got me into Midnight's Edge when they first started out, where like you guys are very much in the weeds and your information is very good and accurate. And it's not just like I hate Disney. It's like, okay, like here's the financials, here's the breakdowns, here's what's happening, here what our sources are saying. Like you guys are actually very, very analytical about like how you break stuff down. So like I just wanted to know, like, what's your background? Why'd you get into like YouTubing and why focus on Disney?
Well, honestly, Valiant Renegade made me get on YouTube, kicking and screaming. So I had been doing this, covering entertainment, covering the Walt Disney Company for years. And some people may remember that I was writing articles for the website owned by Clownfish TV called Pirates and Princesses. And, we had an excellent run there, millions of readers and all of that. And then there was a time when I decided, it was time to strike out on my own. And so we started thatparkplace.com with a group of individuals, and they do an excellent job as well, covering entertainment, covering everything that should be fun. And then I discovered Valiant Renegade, and he was quite the wee little channel at the time, but he was presenting great information. And so once I identified him, I said, this is a guy who is not yet receiving the attention he deserves, but he could be very big. And we're going to do whatever we can to assist him through that park place. And so I connected with him to begin doing that. Then we had this very interesting situation with that park place. So what was happening is that the website that I was now writing for was experiencing the same kind of growth, surprisingly, to my shock, the same kind of growth that we had seen over at Pirates and Princesses. And so we were on this exponential curve in terms of readership. And, everything's going swimmingly at that point, and you're like, whoa, let's ride this thing. Well, apparently, once we released some information about the Marvel Cinematic Universe, specifically when we came out with an article about Hugh Jackman, we beat everybody else in talking about Hugh Jackman was going to be signing, and that came to fruition, of course. We had a sudden plummet in readership and in stability on the website. And so not to go out there and say who our hosting company was or that it was purposeful or whatever, but it was dramatic. And so at the time that was happening, we were trying to figure out, well, what do we do redundantly to protect this? We had this huge growth that's being annihilated. What do we do? And VR said, oh, you're getting on YouTube. And I said, I really don't want to do that because it's better for me to facilitate getting this information out to everybody, sort of be another, bounding into comics that focuses on theme parks and travel and tourism, etc. But he cajoled and got me to be on his show. And then that seemed to be exceedingly popular to my surprise. And after a while of doing that, we said, well, we don't want to compete with these other YouTube channels, but why not start a channel and be a rising tide, and we had no idea how that would go, because switching mediums, you should never assume that just because you're successful as a writer that you can be successful as a YouTuber, as a host, as a conversationalist. And we've just attempted to do the best we can, and that's really flourished. And we're just exceedingly blessed with the channel and with what's happening. And I have been struck by the kindness and openness, the magnanimousness of so many of these YouTube channels, and such as yourself, such as Mexican Iron Man, Valiant Renegade, Midnight's Edge, and Midnight's Edge After Dark. All these individuals, they don't view it as some sort of head-to-head competition. I think many of us perceive YouTube and the broader alternative media structure to be so large that the audience continues to grow and grow, and you don't have to compete necessarily, but you can build congenial relationships and build the camaraderie and become part of this large truth-telling orbit of commentators. And so it's been a real joy to participate in.
Yeah, and the thing I like about your guys' stuff is like you're very much almost like a trade publication, right? It focuses strictly on the industry, but you're not shills, right? Like you could say that Variety and Hollywood Reporter and to some extent Deadline, like they're a little bit in the pocket of the industry, right? Like they can't reveal their sources, they can't really be hypercritical of a lot of things. They may break stories that end up being ultimately critical, like the Indiana Jones premieres. But you guys,
and that's a situation where they can't be positive.
Yeah,
it's so bad that they can't run cover.
Exactly. And I feel like you guys, you get more truth about what's actually happening in the industry from, channels like yours and Valiant Renegades and stuff like that, because, you're not being paid. You're not, you're not technically in the industry. You're just commentating on it, but you're very focused on the industry. And so you're able to kind of like read between the lines and see what's really going on and report that. And in fact, I want to get into that in just a little bit, but also want to, first of all, want to thank 52 Movies a Year for becoming a YouTube member. We got a lot of exciting plans for our membership area. So basically, our YouTube membership area is now going to be very focused on video. A lot of outtakes, a lot of stuff that we can't show publicly is going to be on the YouTube membership. So if you guys are really into video stuff, like be sure to subscribe to the YouTube. But over on our Patreon, which is over at saltynerdclub.com, takes you right to our Patreon, we're going to be making that more audio focused. So if you prefer to like listen to our podcast or just listen to podcasts in general, Patreon, it really sucks for watching video, but for audio, it's actually like pretty good. So we're going to be making it more of an audio focused thing over on the Patreon, more of a video focused thing over on YouTube. And that reminds me that we want to try to hit 5 new members during this live stream. So we already have 1 from 52 movies a year, but our sub goal is 5, and gifted subs do count. Vader has convinced me of this. So he's going to be monitoring the chat. So if anybody wants to gift 4 subs, we'll hit our goal for today. And real quick, we also want to encourage everyone to become SJWs, otherwise known as Salty Justice Warriors. Join the Salty Justice community here. And you can do that by going to the link in the description for our store and getting our SJW t-shirt. Brian still hasn't delivered the boob shirt commercial, but we have this from him anyway. So if you guys want to check out the shirt, here's a quick view of it. Yeah, so if anybody out there wants to join the Salty Army and showcase some swag, and it's actually a really nice shirt, become an SJW and show your salty justice chops for everyone to see out in public. We really appreciate that. And real quick, we also have a few more super chats here. We got Mexican Iron Man for $9.99. Disney better get my stock price up. If Bob wants to buy Hulu, then Bob Iger better start his Only Footsies fan page, like ASAP stat, LOL. I don't know if anybody want to subscribe to his Only Footsies.
I'm terrified of what it would be like if Mickey took off his giant boot, and if that was what Iger is planning to do, the big Mickey Mouse foot reveal on the website.
Yeah,
it might be rodent-like. It could be terrifying.
But Mikey, because we have such a paired back panel today, if you want to come on and join us, just let us know. We'll send you the link for you to hop on. I'm sure WDW wouldn't mind having you on here with us.
Oh, and I consider Mexican Iron Man a dear friend on YouTube. He has been instrumental in helping so many channels.
He really has. Yeah.
I've been sitting here talking into a muted mic, getting pissed off because you guys keep running over me, and it's my fault. So whatever. I was gonna say I don't know why anybody would want to buy Disney stock. I that's the one stock I would dump quicker than anything right now. But I'm not a businessman, so maybe I'm wrong. But I couldn't do it. I could not do it.
Well, you'd also want to dump it because we have the idiots in the Federal Reserve and the government continuing to drive up inflation and make things hard for companies to actually like get loans and do business.
But Vader, it sounds to me like you're coming at that from a moral standpoint versus so not a business decision necessarily, but rather that you object to the actions of the company.
Yeah, well, being a communist sympathizer, you'd think I would want to be all over getting Disney stuff. So
we're going to talk about that in 1 second. Don't get ahead of me, Vader. We've also got Bob Dorsey, one of our Saturday superstars, for $10 or for $20. Good morning, gentlemen. I hope all is well with you. Looking forward, as always. Cheers. Now, Vader, Bob has recently discovered our huge back catalog of audio-only episodes. Man. And he's one of these guys who likes to listen to us while he's out in the wilderness, chopping wood or like what have you. So I think he's quite happy. In fact, he recently checked out our Barbarian episode.
One of our better ones.
Barbarian and Death Stalker and stuff like that. And that was one of those audio-only episodes that I think is probably some of our best work, actually. So it was fun to get to share that with him. And JT Gunn, Late Night with Cap for $2. Keep in my ranking, I got a Salty Sega T2. That's another really popular one where we have a t-shirt in the Sega font that says Salty on it. That's actually one of my favorite.
Salty.
Yes.
Salty. I tried to do the Sega thing, but it's harder to do.
I saw JT and R2 on Dreaming Tabitha's channel this morning painting Mario. She does the paint along stuff, and I wanted to go on there and congratulate her for painting with the special kids out there, but I didn't really want to like go there on her chat, so I'll do it here. She was very generous. Very generous.
Yeah, I really like painting Tabitha. She's a very calming personality to watch.
It's nice
And,
that it's nice that she can reach out to the short busters every once in a while and
yeah, exactly.
and help those guys out. So it's really
And
nice. It's really
speaking
nice
of short busters, just want to give a shout out real quick to Danny the Dork Knight. We
No,
acknowledge you in the
stop.
chat.
What are you doing?
He is here.
God dang it, dude.
We acknowledge that he is here.
You guys, do you know what I just realized?
Hmm.
If you're painting Mario stuff and if you're trying to be soothing, you actually can literally talk about painting happy little clouds. You're truly painting happy little clouds with little smiley faces. So
That's right.
Bob Ross is envious, I'm sure.
That's what
Did
her
you
show
see-
is. It's really good. It's
see that
actually really fun.
There's that new movie, I think it's called Paint, with Owen Wilson, where he plays Bob Ross. It's a movie about Bob Ross. I want to check it out. But speaking of checking things out, so Vader, you said that you were a communist sympathizer.
I am. I'm a communist sympathizer.
And some people might need some context for that. So there was a little kerfluffle between China and Disney, and this was something we were talking about backstage before this live stream started. So why don't you fill people in on your communist sympathies here, and WDW can hop in and give his take on it.
So Bounding into Comics just released a story yesterday, and it was basically about how I'm doing this from memory, so if I get it screwed up, let me know. They put out an article about how China was basically Chinese state government paper or whatever put out some kind of article criticizing Disney about The Little Mermaid and how they don't appreciate their social justice nonsense and how they casted the show and basically just called Disney out for being the social justice warrior bullshitters that they are. And it was a pretty interesting article, and I just replied simply as they're not wrong, and I immediately got a whole bunch of likes, but I also immediately got some comments that said, imagine being so hateful towards Disney that you'll side with communist China. And I'm just like, oh my God, here we go. It was just really a little eye-opening to me and kind of funny, but if a Chinese communist says the sky is blue in China and 2 + 2 is still 4 over there, and you agree with them, that doesn't mean that you're a communist sympathizer. That just means they're right about some things sometimes. So it was just really kind of funny, and I know that opens up a whole other topic about how China kowtows and caters to China for dollars and all this kind of stuff, because they are over there persecuting the Uyghurs and doing all kinds of bad stuff that Disney doesn't seem to mind, right? They don't care about that stuff. But it was just interesting how it takes somebody like the Chinese Communist Party to chide Disney for their nonsense, and it was just amusing to me. And I got accused of being a communist sympathizer, which was kind of funny. So,
well, but
okay.
Before we get Pro's view on this, I just want to shout out our Saturday superstar and big contributor, Scotty Dub.
Scotty Dub, anytime you want to come to my channel, you're welcome now.
Scotty says, always makes my day to see some double mat discussion between His Excellency Kadish and Lord Vader. And I'm particularly happy to see Pro, aka WDW, here on the panel today. Also, Bob Dorsey and Astronerdboy. Let's keep taking the super chats up a notch. Oh, the gauntlet has been thrown down by Scotty Dub. Scotty, really appreciate your support. Just so everyone out there knows, it's because of people like Scotty Dub, Bob Dorsey, and the Astronerdboy, our Saturday superstars, that we're able to do like a podcast studio like we have right now. And we're hoping to quit our jobs, go full time and on YouTube and live streaming, all that stuff, because of the support that people like our superstars have shown us. It helps out tremendously. In fact, I'm going to jump the gun on this a little bit. Alex, the salty nerd himself, has quit his job to go full time here because of the support that we've been getting. He's very nervous about it, but he's like, look, I'm going to go all in. I'm going to burn the ships and just give everything I can to the channel and the podcast and all that good stuff.
Yeah,
and
hopefully.
it's because of people like Scotty who've been so supportive and have given us such generous super chats.
Well, and then it needs to be said that once you can do that, the level of your content, the quality of your content can rise exponentially, because you're not out there chopping down trees as the manly men lumberjacks that we obviously are. So Yeah, absolutely. The supporters out there for all of our channels, they're the electricity that drives all of this.
Yep. It'll be nice here. I think fairly soon, probably next month sometime. I think Alex will be trying to join us on a regular basis Saturday mornings, and
You've been
that'll
very
be good.
jealous about our
He
Saturday
has
live
stream envy because the Tuesday thing is mostly him, and this is us, and he gets a little twisted sometimes when we get the cool people on here. So yeah, it's been kind of fun poking at him, but it'll be nice to have Alex on the show for sure.
Yeah, but dubs. So
you're branding him something he doesn't want to be branded there, man.
Well, I'm just thinking of the jingle we're going to have to do now.
Oh my God.
Dubs, something like that. I don't know.
Well, Scotty Dub just spent $100 to solidify that, so I have to
That's right.
keep going with it. So it's kind of funny people accusing Vader of sympathizing with Disney when Disney has been bending over backwards to the Chinese Communist Party since they entered into that region. And you're the Disney expert here, so I want to hear your take on what's going on between China and Disney with this.
Well, there's much to be said about this, and we can go in many different directions. But where I would simply start is to say that this morning I did a video on this topic, and I was reading like you guys when I saw this article. I was quite impressed with the topic, and so I reached out directly to Bounding Comics and said, can the author of the article, John Trent, can he make it over the channel and let's record and let's get something out there? And so what an amazing blessing that is to be able to reach out directly to the author and have a conversation about it. So here's the takeaway that I have. Disney indeed has been doing anything and everything they can to placate and please the Chinese Communist Party. Now, I don't have any problem with the people of China. The Chinese people, I don't want to paint with a broad brush, and I have met many people from China, as well as many people from Hong Kong and other places who are wonderful individuals. That said, the government of China and I have fundamental differences in the way that I approach the entire world. And so we would agree on very little. For example, in my viewpoint, there is truth, and you should base your life on truth. It's not your truth. It's not my truth. It's the truth. And so the closer you can align yourself with whatever the truth might be, the more successful in life you will be. And that goes for individuals, communities, states, nations, etc. China views the state itself as being the source of all truth, the source of all power. And they, well, just so happen to be the state. Disney, though, with Robert Iger, made a huge mistake that they do not recognize still as being a mistake. At least they don't publicly. And that is that they put tens of billions of dollars in physical real estate investments, capital expenditure investments into theme parks in China. And now if Disney does anything that China doesn't like, well, Disney runs the risk of the Chinese Communist Party coming in and saying, you know what, you don't own Shanghai Resort anymore, or the 47% that they thought. You could see a situation where China could invade another country, and then Disney would be beholden to not say a single thing about it. Because should they do anything that irks the Chinese Communist Party, well, they can just take the resort and Mickey Mouse can be out there waving a burning flag of some place that's been taken over, right there on the castle steps. And we laugh about this, but it's a real possibility that China could inflict serious pain on the company. And so that's a liability that Disney has undertaken under the direction of Robert Iger. He believes that the Shanghai Resort is on par with Walt acquiring the Walt Disney World Resort, which was a magnificent piece of businessman maneuvering. And so Iger holds himself on that same pedestal because he got Shanghai. But in truth, he's been Shanghaied, because now the entire company is up a pole. There's nothing that they can do because China now can manipulate the company to a very high level. Now, we've seen this before with companies like the NBA. We've seen it with Nike. But Disney is in a particularly difficult spot because of the issue of the physical property, right? It's almost hard to imagine any other company endeavor that has the kind of risk involved in building a theme park inside a communist nation. So, for example, let's take Nike. Let's say that Nike does something that really irritates the communists there, and they decide they're not going to sell Nikes anymore. Well, that's terrible for Nike, and they'll find somewhere else. They'll go to Indonesia, they'll go to Thailand to build their Nikes, and they'll still continue the global market.
They would confiscate all their sweatshops.
Exactly. So really bad for Nike, very good for little children, which says something. But for Disney, on the other hand, they would lose massive multi-billion-dollar investments which also have all of their licensed properties there, which can then be used to propagandize. So that's really bad. Now, in terms of what China is doing with The Little Mermaid, you'll recall that China had locked out many Hollywood studios for a few years as China was attempting to build up their filmmaking industry so that it would be superior to our domestic filmmaking industry. They want to beat Hollywood. And so they had done that to manipulate the market. They have re-allowed now American companies to come back in, and they receive about 25% of the total revenue that's made in China off of these movies, but they've allowed American studios to go back in. The issue with this is that China is probably doing this only because the pandemic drastically reduced their ability to produce films. So they have low inventory of films, and they need their theaters to continue running. So they've let the American films come back in, and now they're saying to the Walt Disney Company, we don't like this mermaid movie. And in my humble opinion, I don't think that China believes what they're saying. You see, I think that China is attempting to co-opt the messages that we've been saying about, hey, if you're going to make a movie that stars a black character, an African American character, a character of African descent, however you want to terminology this thing, if you're going to do that, then this ethnicity, this demographic deserves to have their own characters who have the same love and attention put into those characters as the others. It's the same thing with the women issue. If you look at, for example, in Marvel, what caused the Phase 4 failure? Well, it's not that they went for diversity. It's not that they went with women. No, it's worse. It's deeper. It's more philosophical. They decided that it was fine to give hand-me-down content. So you don't get an original character in the latest Thor film that's a female. No, you get Lady Thor. You don't get an original character. You get She-Hulk. You don't get an original character with any of these other things. They're just the female version of already established male characters. You don't get to have Storm. You don't get to have Rogue. These fantastic Marvel characters that are female, already established and wonderful. You don't get those because those would be difficult to do. Now, China is coming back with that same argument. But here's the issue, and here's why I think they're faking the whole thing and just trying to sow discord. The reason I think that is because China in this Global Times release, and by the way, that's state-run media. So that is literally the propagandizing system of the Chinese Communist Party to the rest of the world. Mm-hmm. They're saying that Disney is going to lose the magic glory of storytelling because people are going to focus in on the ethnicity of the actors and actresses rather than the fairy tale. The problem with that argument from China, not from anybody else, but from China, is that China locked out fairy tales for decades because they viewed them as corrupting to the entire Chinese culture. And so the Chinese people don't know what the Little Mermaid is. They don't know that she's black, white, or anything in between. This is the first time they've been exposed to so much of this. Why did the Lion King take off in China, the CGI version? Because they'd never seen the animated version. This blew their minds. And so China, I think, is a bad actor in this. I think they have realized that they can sow discord. The real thing I think is happening with China versus Disney is that China is sending a message to Disney, don't send us any more of these films that feature people of minority, dark skin color to our country again. And I think China literally brought this film into their country knowing that it would do exceedingly poorly to send a message to Disney, because China approves every single movie that takes place inside their box office. That's what it means when you're a communist country that controls everything. And so the one thing, this is what John Trent and I discussed this morning in the video. People need to understand that in China, if you're a Chinese citizen, you are tracked with a social credit score. It's right. Like your social, or it's like your credit score here in the United States in terms of your interactions, right? Did you pay your bills on time? Okay, your credit score goes up. But in China, it's every decision you make, and it's tracked socially, and everything is micromanaged. Well, here's what I think. If you're a Chinese citizen now, and you've just seen that the Chinese Communist Party has spoken out against The Little Mermaid, are you going to go see that film? Heck no, because that's going to lower your social credit score potentially. And you're already neurotic because you don't want to do anything that would lower your family standing. And so I think this is China also saying to their own citizenry, don't support this film. And they're tanking it inside their market.
Yeah, and you know what's funny is, so Disney, I saw a tweet about this morning. So Disney's doing what they typically do when there's backlash against the movie in China, where they're accusing the Chinese of being racist, right? Because they don't want to see The Little Mermaid. And then the Chinese government basically went to Disney and said, cut that shit out. We're not going to put up with it.
And right, we're not going to be Florida for you.
Yeah, and so Disney's like, okay, you guys aren't racist. You know,
That's right.
so and like the backpedaling was like, you know, like they jumped into warp speed immediately when it came to the backpedaling on that stuff, simply because China's just like, yeah, we're not America. We're not going to put up with this kind of nonsense. If you're going to be accusing our citizens of being racist for not wanting to watch your crappy movie.
Isn't it amazing that the Walt Disney Company seems to hold in higher regard the Chinese Communist Party than it does the red states of the United States? They will placate China in any way possible. They will demonize and condemn those who wish to hold on to traditional values and don't want
if you
propaganda
really
and
want to
children's
talk,
content.
if you really want to talk about don't say gay, go to China. Try
There you go.
pulling that
Right.
stuff over in China. It's like you can't say gay in China. You know,
And-
it's it really is a dictatorship, right? It's an oppressive tyranny on a huge level. Like they're basically killing their own citizens.
Oh yeah, well
left and
they're
right.
into organs, and we're not talking about the musical instrument. But
Mhm.
the other thing that's going on here that's really interesting with China is that they have identified a weak spot for Disney, because what Disney is attempting here with The Little Mermaid is that this film is bad. And I
Mhm.
don't mean it's bad in terms of the story. I don't mean it's bad in terms of the performances by the actors. I mean it's bad as in the director, the writers, the choreographers, the costume designers, the CGI artists. They should never be given a budget again. This is an extraordinarily poorly made movie. And Disney, in order to defend that film, which they have had to have known for a long time was going to be bad, there's no way this went through production without them realizing it. Disney apparently determined that the way to defend this exceedingly bad film and protect it at the box office was to create a binary system by which they say to the audience, you either like this film and go see this film and support this film and talk positively about it on the social medias, or you're a horrible person who only dislikes it because of the color of the skin of the actress. And
Mhm.
China has figured out that argument doesn't work because of how bad the movie is, and that they
Right.
can exploit that. And so, real quick, I've talked a little bit too much, but I do want to just, if you have either of you seen this film yet?
No.
I mean,
Okay.
I saw the original. I saw the cartoon.
I just need to explain when I say it's a bad film what I'm talking about. So only two examples, okay? Only two examples. Example number one. In the beginning of the film, Scuttle, the seagull that no longer looks like a seagull, dives into the water and eats a giant fish, you know, for food, which birds do. And Flounder, who now looks like a dead fish for some reason, Flounder is scared of Scuttle, but is chided by Ariel because Scuttle is our friend. Why are you so afraid? And you're like, well, you know, he just saw his brother murdered in front of his eyes. But the film has no cognizance of that. Like that would go completely over the writers' heads.
Yeah.
The second example that I'll give you, and literally there are 100 of these. It's a shoddy film. It's bad. There's no care given. But the second thing is, as they're going in one of the opening scenes towards the Mer people castle under the water, right, where all the Mer royalty, I guess, live. They're swimming towards the water, which doesn't look like water for artistic reasons we won't discuss here. And as they're going towards the castle, there is a glowing light that resembles a sun behind the castle. And I saw this and I thought, wait a minute. Why is there a sun in the water? Like you guys didn't even spend the time to think about that. That there's no sunset in the ocean,
Mhm.
and yet there it is. And what that reveals is, there's also another funny one where King Trident points his trident at Ariel at the end of the movie, like he's going to kill her. And the only reason you know that he's not going to kill her is because you've seen the animated film and know that he's going to change her into a human. But the animated film does that so much better. Whereas in this one, if you've never seen the animated film, if you're a Chinese audience member seeing it for the first time, you think when he says, how bad I'm going to miss her, you think, well, he's going to off the daughter right here. That's how this ends. But anyway, what it shows is that they farm this out to so many different VFX studios. And these different studios don't know what the heck they're doing because they're not being well managed, because there's not a strong director at the top to say, no. What are you doing? There's no sun behind this castle inside. It's in the water, people. And so that's just the entire film is replete with that. And to defend against it, they have used ethnicity as a defense, as a shield against criticism.
Yeah, a friend of mine actually went and saw the movie, and he was like, all of Ariel's sisters are of different races, and even her mother is like a different race than her father, and neither of them are black. And it's just like,
It's a cornucopia.
he was so confused. He was like, how does race work with mermaids?
Well, that's because when mermaids lay their eggs, multiple male mermen come along and they spray their stuff on the eggs, so you never know which one's going to get into what egg. just like
Well,
salmon in the river. They got to go up and spawn and do this weird stuff. So it's all a big.
I wish they hadn't spawned this film. I'll tell you that. But the other thing, and this is an artistic choice they made on the film that's just awful. When they were trying to design how they were going to do this under the water, they came up with the idea that they would CGI their entire bodies, and they would put their faces from the motion capture. They put their faces on these CGI mermaid bodies, and it just does not work, because even during the film, the proportions of their bodies will shift depending on which VFX studio worked on this thing. So, for example, King Trident's biceps change shape and size from scene to scene. It is seriously off-putting. And Ariel, where the seashells would have been, but are no more because seashells were not acceptable, those also change in size. And despite every attempt to not pay attention to that, it's really hard to not go, what the heck is going on? Like, are they Stretch Armstrong in this film underwater? I don't get it.
And D-Dubs, so when I was on your live stream the other day, you had a really interesting story about, there's all these articles about Little Mermaid makes $125 million, and over the Memorial Day weekend box office. And you're like, yeah, with inflation at over 30%, ticket prices have, almost doubled in price since the last time, we had this happen. And so even though it's 125 million or whatever the hell it is, less tickets have been sold. They're just more expensive tickets.
I've been saying for a while that ticket sales should be the metric, not box office, for a long time now.
Yeah, well, that would give a more honest look into what's going on with the industry. So in the private chat, I've given you boxofficepro.com. I don't know if you want to pull it up. It's your show. You don't have to. But I'll simply say that this article, just a few days ago, they were expecting the film to make over $135 million. So when they come out now and say, oh, it's making a huge splash, it's doing so good, it's on track for 120, and then they don't say over the 4-day, by the way. But when they say it's on track for 120 million first weekend, they don't tell you that it's dropping down from where its original projections were. They don't tell you that it needs $800 million to make a profit. They don't tell you that on the 3-day, it's likely to hit just at 100, which is below Ant-Man Quantumania, which, but that's the actual correct framing of what's going on here. And then also, they don't explain to you that, like you said, inflation for movie ticket prices has outstripped the normal inflation that we see that's historic around the country. And so movie ticket prices from now back to 2019 are something like 25% higher now than they were going back to Aladdin. Well, what that means is that Aladdin, ringing in 116 million on its 4-day Memorial Day weekend, had a much larger audience than this Little Mermaid. And why that matters? So you might say, well, that doesn't matter because it's, the Little Mermaid's making more money. So Pro, you're just trying to be obstinate. Well, no, it matters because what are we seeing right now that's destroying the Disney company? We're seeing the drop in subscriber numbers in Disney Plus for North America. That's what this whole thing is about, with the stock dropping down to 5-year lows, right? They can't keep subs. Well, why can't they keep subs? They can't keep subs because the societal participation in their product has dropped. How do we know that? Well, we look at the box office and we say, per tickets sold, not per the dollar, you have less butts and seats. So if you have less butts and seats, that means you have less eyes that want to see it once it comes to their house. That's the simple thing that the trades don't want to cover. And that's why on thatparkplace.com, on every single article, we put at the bottom of the thing a little disclaimer that says we accept no quid pro quo or financial benefit from Disney or any other subject we cover. We literally can't. And so that's just the telling the truth of the matter.
I really wish Odin was here to geek out with you over box office.
Yeah, you guys would have a good time.
Yeah.
It'll happen. It'll happen in the future.
It'll happen. Real quick, I'm going to give a quick shout out to Nick6, Hail Vader and Kadish, and everyone in chat. Good to see you, Nix. And we got a comment from a Twitch viewer, Gannon136. Good to see you, Gannon. Thanks for checking us out on Twitch. We are multi-streaming everywhere that you can stream video right now, so that's a lot of fun. But let's move on from some of the wonkier Disney stuff, and let's talk a little bit about Paramount for a change and Star Trek. Now, I was sitting right here the other day where Peter was sitting next to me.
Yeah.
And he started chuckling like a little boy while watching the new Strange New Worlds trailer. And it turns out this is what he was chuckling at right here. When this appeared at the very end of the trailer for season 2 of Strange New Worlds, for those of you who don't know, there's an animated Star Trek series out there called Lower Decks, and it's about ensigns on like the Star Trek starships and like all the normal everyday stuff.
Well, it's just like a Star Trek show. They're on one ship, and these are the two main characters of the show, and it's animated, and it's set in the same era as Picard is basically right now.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
far future from Enterprise.
Yes, and these are the voice actors of the actual characters from the cartoon show. You got was it Dennis Quaid's son, Randy Quaid's son?
I forget
this guy right here.
Yeah.
Jack Quaid, maybe.
Jack, I think that's right.
I'm just impressed how photogenic they both are for voice actors. I mean,
well, they're both actors. They're both real actors.
They're both actors. And
in fact, he's on The Boys, right?
He's on The Boys. He's going to be an Oppenheimer. You know, he comes from basically, you know, he's the spawn of Meg Ryan and Dennis Quaid. So,
I see the resemblance. Yeah, I see the Meg Ryan resemblance.
And he I don't know if you guys can tell, but he's got purple hair just like the character in the TV show does. And this actress's hair looks just like the character from the cartoon. But everyone's wondering, so like Strange New Worlds takes place in the original series timeline, and these characters are from the 25th century. So everyone's wondering, like, how's this crossover happening in season 2? So but Vader, what's your take on this? Do you think this is just more Kurtzman nonsense?
It's absolutely Kurtzman nonsense. You know, they're cross promoting their shows, but you know, I'm one of those weirdos that I actually kind of I watch Lower Decks. I don't hate the show. For a while, it was probably the best new Star Trek that they were actually putting out there, with the exception of a few episodes. But you know, it's a goofy show. It's a cartoon. It's an adult cartoon, kind of in that Rick and Morty kind of vein of humor and stuff. And it's very strange for a Star Trek show. That being said, it is what it is. I'm more curious of how the writers have put them into Strange New Worlds. I'm very curious about how they're going to pull this off. If it's just for a couple of minutes, if they're there for a whole episode, I want to know what's going on. So they hooked me. They did it. You know, they got that hook out there. They've got me interested. So I know we're going to watch Strange New Worlds. We're probably going to review every single episode on this show like we do every year. But I'm really interested in that one because it looks goofy and stupid, but at the same time, I'm like, okay, this might be kind of a fun thing. You know, I kind of look at it as in the same vein as when DS9 went back to the Trouble with Tribbles episode. You know, goofy, stupid, but it's not like an unprecedented thing where they're going to cross-pollinate the shows with each other. So maybe it'll suck. Maybe they'll pull it off really well, you know, but who knows? So I guess we'll see.
No, dubs. We have a situation here where Paramount has been told by their advisors to get out of streaming altogether, shut down Paramount Plus, and Star Trek. Star Trek has really been the only thing to kind of keep the Paramount Plus thing buoying. In fact, I believe they're merging Paramount Plus and Showtime now because they had like 2 different streaming platforms. I'm not sure how wise that is, but I know Showtime was like a big subscription-based thing for them. I don't know if you're a big Star Trek guy. We cover Star Trek pretty extensively on here, especially when Brian's on the panel from the podcast. But what's your take on this? Do you think Paramount Plus, in terms of like the health of their streaming service, you know, needs to, you know, pull stunts like this in order to get more viewers?
So I have been attempting for the last week to do a video on the Star Trek situation, and darn it if Disney just doesn't keep delaying me by all their nonsense. So probably this coming week we'll finally be able to get this out there, but we've been given a database of about 5 years, and legally and ethically acquired, but a database of about 5 years of statistics in regards to eBay sales of Star Trek merchandise, and then that broken down into subcategories. And so Jonas J. Campbell, investigative reporter for that Park Place, is actually going through that information, trying to cipher out which properties are on the decline in terms of interest, because no, it's not first point of sale retail information, but you can still acquire, like, what is the interest of the public based on what's going on eBay, i.e. you can check to see, how is the original Star Trek merchandise doing in terms of the volume of sales compared with this new Kurtzman stuff. And by the way, we already know the answer. We'll be revealing it, but I don't think it's a shock to anybody that there is very low interest in any of this new stuff that's coming out of the Kurtzman camp. Now, of course, that does not include Picard season or the latest Picard season. That seems to be a totally differently received item. It does seem to me that it's an odd thing to watch both Star Wars and Star Trek floundering at the same time. And it's leaving a huge opening for the sci-fi genre if somebody is just willing to go for it and create something that would really enrapture those who feel disenfranchised from these franchises. And so, with the Orwell, we saw the potential of that, but really there is an opportunity for something big to happen. And I don't know who's going to do that. Now, in terms of Paramount Plus, this is a streaming service that came into the game, I thought, in a very strong manner. And I'm not fully sure exactly what has caused them to waver so greatly. They have been largely outplayed by the other big streamers, even as Disney Plus has struggled. So that should have given them the opening. But I suspect that one of the issues here is that, just like on Disney Plus, it seems to me that families have not trusted Paramount with their children's content. And that also is due to a very similar approach as to what was going to be in there. And I don't think that these companies took fully into account how negatively that could impact them with such a vast swath of the country. They miscalculated that you can put divisive content or content that's avant-garde on the side of the social issues of the day. You can put that in adult content and nobody really cares. I'll give you an example. On Stranger Things, you have Max and you have some other characters. I forget the name of the girl who worked at the Scoops place, but those characters demonstrate some different opinions versus traditional values, stuff that you probably would not have seen so readily in the 80s, but nobody cares because it's not aimed at children. But then when you go with Paramount, it was only 2 years ago that Paramount did a Blue's Clues PSA where they had squirrels or rodents of some sort who, I think it was squirrels, that had had surgery on the top of them, and they had bandages over the top of these squirrels, which, by the way, I didn't know squirrels could grow those, but apparently they can. And they're in this parade. And I don't think that these companies understood that there's a differentiation in the minds of Americans when it comes to adult content, or grown-up content, if you will, and children's content. And people simply don't want anything that would bypass parental decision-making going to kids. If you couldn't go ring on the doorbell and say, hey, I'd like to show this to your children and be let in, then why would parents do the same for you through the cable, through the streaming wires that come into their television? It makes no sense.
Vader, speaking of that, I wanted to ask you, so like this trailer was for season 2 of Strange New Worlds.
Mm-hmm.
We've reviewed season 1 on here before. Yeah. What's your take on season 2? Do you think it's going to be any good?
From what I saw in the trailer, I think it will be just as good as season 1 was. And I can't sit here and say that I didn't like season 1. I did. I ended up giving the season a 7 out of 10 on the review scale. And that was simply a score of episodes I liked versus episodes I didn't. And saying that, I think that's a pretty good track record for season 1. And if they can keep that same quality up with season 2, I can't say it's not going to be good. There were some clips in that season 2 trailer that I found very interesting. There's the Klingon stuff. There's some really, I'm not going to sit here and gush over the special effects shots because the special effects shot better be good, but they are really good. There's some really cool stuff in there. I'm interested what they're going to do with Cybok, because they introduced him right at the very end of season 1. That's a really interesting story arc that they need to explore. And I'm assuming they're exploring it, because why would they introduce him at the end of the season, right? There's some stuff in there that I think I can't expand on, but it seems a little bit weird with the younger version of Kirk. I'm not sure where they're going with that, or if I don't even know why he's even in the show. I don't think he really needs to be in the show other than to get Star Trek nerds chatting about it. I don't think they need to pull that card yet. Personally,
it really makes me wish that these were different original characters set in a different time period in the Star Trek universe, so that we were just free to like do anything with them, as opposed to comparing them to like the original series and stuff like that.
There was in the trailer, there was a lot of stuff with number one. She was featured heavily in the season 2 trailer, and that was a mistake, I think, because season 1, she got arrested and taken off the ship. We had no idea what was going to happen to her. We all know she's going to come back, but they didn't even like let us stew on that until the new season started. You know what I mean? It's like, oh, well, there she is in the trailer prominently, so she's obviously going to be back on the show fairly quickly. So, there's things in there that seem kind of weird, but there's also a lot of really interesting things too. So I feel like we're going to probably get about the same quality we got from season 1 and season 2, and that's fine. And that's fine.
Peter, what do you make of this argument that I've been seeing online lately? I'm a little bit on the tangentially aware of it because I haven't dived into it necessarily, but I see all of these articles that are suddenly coming out about the inherent flaws of Captain Kirk in the original, and his character being less than it could be, and in need of repair if it's ever resurrected or brought back to its full regard. What are they talking about? Why do they need to go in and change this character at a fundamental level?
I think I think that's just what these people do these days. I mean, they like to dig into the past and point out the problems of shows.
Don't you do that
and
to
people
them?
And characters. It's just something that these idiots out there do.
Why do you think it's been an avalanche of that? Why do you think it's all of a sudden?
Because I really don't know the answer. I really don't. But they're doing stuff like going back and they're like I feel like this started with a few years ago when they dug up an old John Wayne interview or something from a Playboy magazine, right? Yep. Is that's the first example that I can think of where they're robbing the graves of these people and these characters and trying to cancel them,
well, they have to be held to their pristine standards. Yeah, they don't want to be held to the same.
Yeah, exactly. And it's just social activism. It's just it's just more of what we expect them to do at this point.
Let me ask you both this question. Go ahead with your thought. I don't mean to interrupt you.
No. I really, my thoughts are very short and fleeting, kind of slow.
So what I try to do on my channel, and I think this is why there's been the growth. I'm not, I'm not fully aware of what's going on either. I'm sitting back and saying, "Wow, this is crazy."
Mm-hmm.
But I think part of it is that I try to go down to this philosophical level to understand these things.
Right.
And so I want to toss this to you guys and see what you think, because I'm playing around with it in my head, trying to see what I think about it. I wonder if what we're viewing across entertainment is a function of what I believe to be that this woke ideology, formerly called the SJW. You guys have taken that. I congratulate you on it. Well played.
We love our SJWs.
Yeah. That's right. But they've developed this quasi-religious position where they're very good at condemnation. They're very good at damning and canceling.
Mm-hmm.
There's no mechanism inside their belief system that I can see by which one can be redeemed, by way of which one can, seek out to atone for the sins of the perceived SJWs. What do you guys make of that? Is that what is killing, in part, our entertainment? This lack of an ability to bring back someone from their flaws?
So here's the thing, right? There's a broader issue in Hollywood, which is that talent isn't necessarily rewarded. People who deserve certain positions don't usually get them. Having worked in the industry, I know that it's really about your interpersonal relationships. So like if you have parents that have connections that can hook you up, if you have money, if you are friends with the right people, you tend to get the jobs. And when it comes to writing, right, storytelling, there is no real barrier to entry, because as long as you can type keys on a keyboard and put words onto a screen, you're technically a writer. So you have
You're suggesting that words per minute is your most valuable asset.
I'm suggesting like being able to use ChatGTP to write an essay.
Right.
You've made him mad now. You've
slapped
the hornet's nest, sir.
Skill. It's about the level of skill that's necessary to be hired as a writer in Hollywood. So, you have a broader issue where the writers who are getting hired aren't getting hired based off of the quality of what they can produce. It's based off of their interpersonal relationships or what have you. And speaking of interpersonal relationships, I want to bring on the Allfather himself, Odin from OMB Reviews. He's finally decided to join us after smiting his enemies.
Yes, or in other words, bringing baby Thor to a birthday party.
Here's a question for you, since you guys are experts on this: is it smited or is it smote?
Smote.
Okay, just checking. I stand corrected. Smote it is.
Yes.
Yeah.
Everyone loves a good smote every now and then.
Smite, smote, smitten. Got it.
But now we have two big brains on the panel when it comes to industry insider information. Real quick before I throw this over to Odin, Matt Vader, we had a good friend of the show gift 5 subs.
Yeah.
You want to give that a shout out?
Yeah. God, I gotta find it. Oh, there it is. Shout out to our friend WG for gifting 5 subs a while back. Thank you so much for that, sir. We appreciate it. So goal met. Let's do another 5 subs. Let's up that goal. Let's do 10 today. 5 more. Let's do 5 more.
See if we can get 5 more subs going. And just a reminder that the content for members on the YouTube channel is going to be video based, and the content for the members on the Patreon is going to be audio based going forward. Right. So we're going to have 2 different competing members areas over there. So if you guys want to check that out. So Odin, welcome.
Howdy. Good to be back as always.
Did you get my message about kick.com by any chance?
Yes. Or I got some messages from it, basically how it's a Twitch competitor and it's still got a little ways to go.
A little bit of a ways, but so we already talked about China and Disney. And now we're talking about Paramount Plus. What's your take on what's going on with between Disney and China, and also Paramount's kind of precarious position with streaming?
Well, I don't know too much about the Paramount streaming situation, but when it comes to Disney, I just love how you had Bob Iger gone for just a little while, right? And it seemed as if the relationship between those two had kind of fallen apart, at least from between Disney and China, right? There was a long period of time when you just didn't have any films from Disney getting released there. And then all of a sudden Bob Iger's back, and it seems like every single movie, you even have films, what was it? Was it Black Panther that got retroactively released by the time that he took over?
Yeah.
And it was like, oh man. Yeah, exactly. So it's like, okay, so clearly Iger has a very cushy relationship with the Communist Party in China. And I think that it's something that is interesting because it has always been something that they and many other studios have used to kind of balloon their numbers, because on paper it looks really good, saying, oh, we made $200 million in China, look how awesome that is, but then just glossing over the fact that they're only getting like 25% of that even back, and so it's really fool's gold in a lot of ways. But it kind of sickens me, to be honest, when it comes to Bob Iger especially, because they were seemingly, kind of putting a little bit more distance between themselves after especially the debacle with Aladdin. But now it's clear that, nope, they're back to their cushy ways, and they're not really making China a whole lot of money, it seems, at least for a lot of their films.
Which brings us to the super chat from Bob Dorsey for $20. Thanks, Bob, one of our Saturday superstars. There is beginning to be a large pushback on all this woke trash. They have to push harder to accomplish more as resistance grows. And it's kind of interesting because, like, a lot of this stuff is being kind of fueled by ESG, which is, basically the woke credit score, as I like to refer to it, that these companies basically have to adhere to in order to get certain amounts of funding. But the flip side of that is that the ESG is devaluing these companies. Like Target just lost like $9 billion because they were catering to the ESG score. And it's kind of this nefarious thing. I saw a really interesting news story about this morning, where basically China's behind, this corporate ESG stuff.
Except
and they're
in their
trying,
country.
No, in this country.
Right, exactly. Except in
yeah.
their country. That's the point.
Mhm.
Yeah,
They support this stuff elsewhere.
And the point of it is like they're getting these like traditional American companies to go along with this woke BS, and they're doing it specifically so that there is this backlash and the companies become ruined because people just stop buying their stuff or like, you know, there's pushback to it. So they're running the companies, in their opinion, out of business by funding them to the point where, like, you know, the companies are incentivized to basically put themselves out of business. It's kind of like an interesting take on that. And Hollywood right now, you know, has been at the forefront of that for a very long time, I think, simply because they've been trying to break into like the Chinese market by catering to the Chinese. And a lot of their funding probably comes from these like ESG companies. D-Dubs and Odin, what's your take on that?
Well, let me give a little bit into the weeds explanation for what's going on here. We're looking at, on a macro and micro level, a paradoxical conflict when it comes to this woke stuff.
Mhm.
And here's what I'm talking about. On the macro level, you've just described it. We have the paradox of these companies attempting to get their ESG scores so that they can get money while simultaneously disenfranchising their consumers and thus losing money. So you've got that paradox. But it also exists on the micro level. So it's not just at the corporate, national, state level, but it's also within these minor or lower level arguments. So we just had the super chat or the chat that popped up just then about the alcoholic beverage company. In that case, they receive backlash on one side. Then their lack of response condemning the backlash leads to a counter backlash. We've seen that on so many fronts. In Florida with the Disney situation where they're taking on DeSantis. Disney gets a backlash from conservatives, let's say. Excuse me. Then they get a counter backlash because groups like the NAACP say it's no longer safe to travel to Florida because Florida is backlashing against Disney. So therefore, we're going to tell our side not to go to Florida either. And then you get the counter backlash. So you have these paradoxical kind of situations where the company becomes the ultimate victim in this, but they're elective in putting themselves into that position in the first place.
Odin, what's your take on this?
Yeah, a lot of it kind of reminds me about Star Wars, in that you have this almost the empire of China influencing all of like the Senate and all of the Republic, right, and all the representatives, which would be Hollywood in this situation, and it's all like and all general corporations too, and they're all just doing things against their own interests and not even realizing it, right? They're the ones pulling all the threads. They're the ones that are, you know, using them as basically as puppets in a quest for. And it sounds like a movie, but think about it. It's like what other what other goal would they have except some kind of world domination? All right, you have all these Western companies just destroying themselves, destroying their brands, destroying their IPs, meaning it's destroying their value. Who's going to be there to help pick up all the pieces, and who's going to be able to actually do those things? Oh wait, China.
Oh wait, so what you're saying is George Soros is the emperor and China is the trade federation.
Oh, now
is that? And I hate you for making me think about episode 1 because that movie sucks. And damn it, man. Okay, yeah.
I'm just surprised.
It's all making sense now.
Yes.
I'm just surprised, given our current political machinations throughout entertainment, that in the last one, The Rise of Palpatine, that he wasn't covered in Dorito dust in order to send out a message.
Well, speaking of Star Wars, guys, let's talk about the latest.
Do we need
news?
All right, and next topic, guys, we're going to go talk about Avatar or anything else.
So we have this this article from good friends at Bounding into Comics, where basically Kathleen Kennedy has publicly come out and said that all future Star Wars projects are going to be based off of the High Republic stories, and she's very proud of this fact, despite the fact that the High Republic has, by and large, been a complete disaster. Vader, what's your take on this?
My take is I guess Star Wars is officially kind of dead now at this point. I don't know anything about the High Republic other than they have a lot of representation and they have a lot of rock-based life forms. And
talking rock.
Yeah, I have no interest in this. It's it spawns from a giant whiteboard that said inclusion and dinosaurs and purple lightsabers and shit, you know. So Kathleen Kennedy's just a moron. If she thinks that the High Republic is going to be a pillar of the future of Star Wars, then she's just kind of dumber than we all think she already is, right? I mean, everything that I've seen about the High Republic is a failure. They have poor selling comics, they have poor selling books. They're never going to be able to support a live action show or especially a movie franchise based on the High Republic. And honestly, I kind of at this point hope they do it. I mean, why not? Let's just milk the holy living hell out of how bad Star Wars is, and let's get some clicks and views on our YouTube channels, right? Because that's all it's good for anymore. That's all it's good for. And bring it, Kathleen. Let's go. Give us some stuff to talk about, because it's certainly not going to be good. Yeah. So anyway, that's it.
So D-Dubs, this is kind of coming off the heels of the failure of Galactic Star Cruiser and the underperformance of, Disney's Star Wars Land, or whatever you want to call it. What's your take on this? Why do you think Kathleen Kennedy just keeps doubling down on trying to destroy everything Lucasfilm holds dear?
Well, let's review the last 2 weeks. The Galactic Star Cruiser cannot stay open under any pricing system that they could come up with. It just has to close. It is better as a tax write-down than as a theme park attraction. Willow has been wiped off of Disney Plus. Willow, another major franchise, or was supposed to become a major franchise under Lucasfilm, had to be removed also as a tax write-off. It is better as a tax write-off than it is as streaming content. Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny is being eviscerated in the reviews by the people who are most inclined to review it positively. So it has no chance. It will be a bomb at the box office. Given its budget, it's one of the most expensive films ever made. It will probably lose in excess of $100 million, and I would suggest it probably will lose upwards of $200 million depending on its success there. Now, at the same time, and the media is not reporting this, so it's kind of a struggle, because you put this info out and everybody says, what's he talking about? He's crazy. Disney is really hurting for money. They're not covering that at all in the mainstream, but we have done extensive reporting on that. Mexican Iron Man has validated that information. Of course, he's a major CPA out there. That's not often talked about on YouTube. We've done investigative journalism into this. Disney is trying in every way possible to get as much money as they can, because they're at war with Comcast trying to purchase Hulu. And it's not going to be easy for Disney. Disney is operating with a very small amount of emergency funds. Now, all of this combined with some things we've heard from sources, it's almost painful to say this, because it's been said so many times by people who are well-meaning but also charlatans. But it's my belief that Kathleen Kennedy will not be at Lucasfilm for more than 1 year. Now, do I know that to be true? No, of course, it's in the future. But there are strong indicators now happening that don't have anything to do with the normal fan accusations, which we all know and which we probably hold. But it's now becoming a business situation. Now, in terms of what she said, Kathleen Kennedy says that they're going to do all the future Star Wars stuff on High Republic. Well, except for the Rey movie. Well, except for the Dave Filoni movie, the Mandoverse movie. Well, except for, we could keep going. Except for the Skeleton Crew. We can keep going. Kathleen Kennedy doesn't know what she's talking about.
Nope.
And what that means is that she's disconnected. There was a question asked to her at the Indiana Jones, screening at the Cannes Film Festival, where she was asked about the writer's strike. And she had no meaningful answer to that either. And all of that is leading me to believe that she truly is disconnected. The Star Wars Celebration that they just had viewership that was below what large YouTubers get for big streams. They can't ignore this, because they don't have the money any longer to hold her on as a pariah. Because in the past, they didn't care if she bombed, because it was more painful to get rid of her. But now, when you're operating with only 3 to 6 weeks of emergency funds as a company, and your stock is at the lowest it's been in 5 years, and that means that you can't purchase Hulu like you thought you could, and the 10 million that you thought, or the 10 billion you thought you could purchase it for, has been increased to like 35 billion by Comcast, and you've already programmed Disney Plus to feature Hulu as a tab inside there. You can't afford for this woman to make a Rey movie that will lose 200 million, to make a Mandoverse movie that will lose 200 million. And you say, well, they won't lose 200 million. Well, Solo lost money and Indy's going to lose more. Do they really want the risk?
So, Odin, Kathleen Kennedy famously came out and said, like, Star Wars has no source material to draw from. and in this article, she's quoted as saying, you have a huge book initiative with the High Republic and all these novels coming out. So is that a space where we're going to start seeing more on-screen, adaptations? I guess this was actually the podcast host who asked her about this. But in Kathleen Kennedy's mind, now that there are actual novels to draw material from, that those being the High Republic, now she's like, oh, we can mine those for future Star Wars stuff. And so she's seeing it as, okay, this is stuff that under my regime was source material that was created. Therefore, it's it's stuff that we can pull from to make future Star Wars movies and TV shows from. What's your take on this?
Well, also, it's interesting because I'm glad that WD brought it up, saying how, we could talk about, or she can say how they're going to, the future is High Republic, and yet there's all of these other things that are going on. But also, if you think about it from the way that you just worded it there, well, it kind of has to be, because she knows, or we would presume that she would know, if they were to put out a High Republic film next year or in 2 years, the movie wouldn't do anything. No one would be going to see it, because no one's been reading these books. No one's been diving into these stories at all.
You're not going to either.
Yeah, exactly. And so it's almost as if she's like, okay, well, we're going to wind down, right, this old era, right? Because the Rey movie, they could try and say, oh, yeah, it's going to be its own thing. It's not going to be a part of the 9-film series. But in reality, it's like, yeah, but where was she introduced in the 9-film series? And so if this is a continuation of her story, by default, it's a continuation of that story too, right?
It's still a default continuation of the Skywalker saga, right? Because she's
the Skywalker. Rey Skywalker.
Palpatine.
Yes, exactly, right? If we were being honest, Rey Palpatine, but no, Rey Skywalker. But it's a continuation of that, right? But you could still look at it and say, but it's you're just getting that much further away, right? And I think that all these other stories are going to get just slightly further away. And I hope that they realize that it's going to be a terrible financial decision for them. But I think in her mind, she's thinking long term, when she doesn't realize that she doesn't really have a long term to work with anymore, because she's destroyed the IP so much. And so she's thinking, oh, well, once all this stuff winds down, well, then the High Republic will be there and it'll be great and there'll be this rejuvenation. But I love what Vader was saying about how, it's the death of Star Wars. It's like, what are we on, death number 10, death number 20? Because I feel like they do something every single day that just causes us to be like, oh man, this has to be the end. But then also too, going back to also what was being said before about Kathleen Kennedy being clueless, the image that popped into my head was from Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back. And it was when you had, I forgot the director's name, but he's just sitting in the chair doing Good Will Hunting 2, and he's just counting his money. He's like, I'm busy, Ben. I'm busy. Like, that's what Kathleen Kennedy seems like. Is she's just there with the money, not really doing anything at all, because I think she is clueless.
I just got this picture in my head of when she says stuff like that, of Timothy Zahn going out onto his porch and screaming into the sky.
I have no source material.
What do you mean? What are you doing?
So let me tell you guys a very short and very funny story that connects Timothy Zahn and the High Republic. And very briefly before I do, let me say it's a weird feeling to have been the person saying Kathleen Kennedy will not retire at Star Wars Celebration. None of this is happening. And I took fire from people on that.
I mean, I've been saying that for years.
Yeah, and then after that, I said, by the way, she probably is now going to exit Lucasfilm, although she'll be quote unquote promoted, and take fire that side. So it's been very interesting whiplash. But here's the very short, very funny story. So Barnes and Noble was they received a contract from the Walt Disney Company to put High Republic material on the end cap spaces inside their stores. That's the most premium space inside the store.
Big
and
real
so
estate.
they did so, but they couldn't sell the books at all. They didn't, and so they're losing that premium real estate to just defunct kind of novels.
Well, they're not losing it because Disney pays like $50,000 per store for that in cap space.
Right, but so here's what's funny about it. Talking about the Timothy Zahn situation. So what Barnes & Noble did is they looked in the contract and found a loophole, which allowed them to put the High Republic at the very bottom of the shelf and even on the floor, stacking it on the floor. God. And then they literally, in the end cap, put the Timothy Zahn novels back on that end cap above the High Republic and managed to actually sell stuff using the end cap while navigating that contract.
That's
So,
awesome.
and we have photos from Barnes and Nobles all over the country on that park place. Now that's like a 2-3 year old article, but it's really funny.
That's fantastic.
I don't know if you know this, D-Dubs, but I'm a published novelist. And during my time as a professional novelist, I looked into, how much it costs for those Barnes & Noble end caps and stuff like that. And they are not cheap. And so all the books that get featured in those things, the companies are paying a premium price to have their books featured there.
Well, now as a professional novelist, then, let's get your take on this. I'm sure you've never spoken about the High Republic on any show on YouTube ever.
We don't talk about it very much, honestly.
But as a professional novelist, where do you think they went wrong in terms of building this up to be some new era of Star Wars that could be successful at all?
They went back in time. They should have gone forward.
That's yes.
That's the main issue with all of like Star Wars and stuff, and to some extent Star Trek, is that the creatives keep going back because it's easier to come up with stories that have already kind of been established than creating new stuff and moving forward. Like if a franchise just keeps going back in time, to the first Jedi and like all this other stuff, it's slowly dying, right? Because it's not doing anything new. You can't innovate by going back in time. Star Trek tried to do this by putting holograms on the original Enterprise and all this other stuff. And fans were like, what the fuck?
Yeah.
Like this is not how the Enterprise was. So when you have a situation where there is no forward progression with a franchise, it becomes stagnant, it becomes stale, and it becomes boring. And that's the issue that's going on with Star Wars and the High Republic.
But the amazing thing about Lucasfilm and their incompetence, I mean, this really is something. You're right that usually, if you go back, then you're regressing. Lucasfilm also has the ability, it is uncanny, to go into the future, to take their franchise forward and regress simultaneously. They are able to destroy their characters both in prequel form with the Kenobi series and in sequel form with Luke, Leia, and Han. It's incredible.
Even the sequel form wasn't forward because JJ just recycled the original trilogy.
Regurgitated.
Right? Yeah, the sequel trilogy literally brought nothing new to the table. It was just a reformatted version of A New Hope. So, it was a reset. The First Order was the Empire. The Resistance was the Rebellion. It was zero new stuff, right?
So you're saying when he brought Palpatine, zombie Palpatine, one of a million of those back with 10,000 Star Destroyers, returned. You're saying that was not original. Hold on, I'm writing this down. Hang on.
Not at all, yeah. So I like that's the death knell for any franchise. But real quick, I want to call up 2 super chats. One from our salty superstar, the Astronerdboy, for $5. Star Wars is dead. I used to want a Knights of the Old Republic adaptation, but no longer. KK and company would trash it beyond belief. The best Knights of the Old Republic adaptation is the video game. Just go play that. It's got a great story to it. The MMO was a lot of fun. Yeah. So like the video game is the superior version. If they made it into a movie, they would just ruin it. And
now, was that an Xbox? That was not an Xbox exclusive, right? That was on PS3 as well.
No, it was on PC and all the.
I think it was on all of them.
Okay,
it was basically everything. Back when BioWare used to be good. Bob Dorsey for $20, another salty Saturday superstar. I may be wrong, but looking at this like a business doesn't work to me. They are the propaganda wing of Hollywood elites with a limitless supply of printable, literally money. Just my 2 cents. Hollywood has always been the propaganda wing of the Communist Party. In fact, Razorfist just came out with a really good rant talking about how Walt Disney was very anti-communist and he'd be ashamed of what the company is doing nowadays. And it was very interesting where he basically talked about how a lot of communists got into positions of script reading. And for those of you who don't know, script readers are the ones who approve a script to be passed on to a producer or a director or something like that. And so because there were a lot of communist-leaning script readers in Hollywood in the 50s and 60s and stuff like that, any anti-communist or anti-subversive material never even got to the creatives, right? Because they would just kill it before it got anywhere. So there's something far more nefarious going on in Hollywood, and I know that when I worked there, for the most part, like the left-leaning totalitarian socialist / communist political beliefs are very much there because those things tend to support the elite, right? And everyone in Hollywood wants to be part of the elite, the rich and stuff like that.
The other funny thing about Hollywood is that they will come up with a cause de force for some time being, right? So we just saw that. We saw that with the Weinstein situation and then the movement that happened after it. And what happens in Hollywood is they make this giant movement where they believe that they are the avatars for changing the world. And the rest of the world looks at Hollywood and their movement and goes, we don't do any of that. That's just you. That's just you over there acting like a bunch of absolutely immoral reprobates. So it is funny to watch them have these moral epiphanies that the rest of the world had centuries ago.
So I want to talk a little bit about a Amazon TV show called Citadel. I know that you guys probably haven't watched this.
Nope.
Some of you probably haven't even heard of it.
Nope.
That makes us highly qualified.
Yep.
Yes.
But
Are you going to make it homework? Are you going to make me watch it?
I'm interested to get your take on. No, I'm not going to make you watch it. It's only 6 episodes though, so it's not a big time commitment. But so Citadel is from the Russo brothers, famously, from the Marvel Cinematic Universe. They were responsible for the Infinity War saga and Endgame. And
is this an older series, newer series?
Brand new.
Okay.
So this is an Amazon original series, and it was something that that they struck a deal with the Russo brothers over, and it was going to be like Amazon's big breakout franchise. This and Rings of Power were going to be like the two things that Amazon original series kind of hung its hat on.
Thank goodness this is a low budget project.
Yeah, we're going to get to that. So Citadel, which stars Rob Stark from Game of Thrones, aka Richard Madden.
Wasn't he in the Eternals too?
He was in the Eternals.
So he's famous for Eternals. That's what you should talk about instead.
Well, exactly.
Everyone saw
Anyone
Eternals.
truly be famous from the Eternals.
And also, a Jonas Brothers wife is also starring in this.
Oh.
So it's basically like a globe hopping James Bond-esque adventure thing about two super spies who are sometimes in love and sometimes don't trust each other and all this.
That
other
might
stuff.
be offensive to James Bond. Maybe Carmen Sandiego is more on the level.
That's offensive to Carmen Sandiego.
Where in the world?
But the story behind this show is actually very fascinating. So basically, the Russo brothers made this huge deal with Amazon where they were going to make this tentpole original series, right? Something that Amazon could go out and basically franchise. And while they were making it, the Russo brothers got distracted with their Netflix deal. They were doing The Gray Man. And so they hired a showrunner by the name of Josh Applebaum to come on board. And,
I love the name for nothing
this.
else. It's
a strong name.
Strong name. You don't work at Apple with a name like that.
So as Applebaum was helming this big budget franchise picture, the Russos were just kind of like off doing their own thing. And then they started watching the completed episodes. And apparently they were so bad that the Russos stopped everything they were doing and went to Amazon and apologized and said, hey, we need money to redo this because we can't release the show as is. And so Applebaum got fired after numerous creative struggles with the Russos. And Amazon basically spent double the amount of money to reshoot this entire show. And originally the series was supposed to be 8 episodes. So Applebaum was working on 8 episodes. And because of the reshoots, they had to cut it down to 6 episodes. And the
sounds like a Solo situation.
It's even worse than the Solo situation. So the budget, right? This one reports 200 million, but at the end of the day, for the 6 episode spy show, Amazon spent upwards of 300 to 350 million on a streaming show. Right. So Citadel became the second most expensive TV show behind Rings of Power that Amazon has made. And
two great names to mention together at this point.
And it wasn't because of the original, production. It was because they had to go back and redo the whole thing because the original version was so bad. And now they've approved it for a season 2, and the Russos are coming in to basically show, run, and direct the whole second season. Now I've been watching the show, me and Jude have. And it's
How long are the
bad.
episodes? What are we talking
They're
about?
hour long.
Okay, I was trying to figure out per minute how much they spent. So,
And I was trying to
Yeah,
go, how much per episode was Rings of Power?
I don't know, but basically the episodes are your typical 45 to 60-minute episodes.
50 to 58 million per episode.
But
So like $1 million
I've
a
been-
minute.
Yeah, I've been watching this show, and it's not bad, but it's also not good. It's just kind of meh.
It's not $50 million worth per episode, you think?
No, it's not. But since we got such big brains on the panel when it comes to industry stuff,
can I do a
want to-
Leroy Jenkins real quick?
yeah, go ahead.
You ready for Leroy Jenkins? I've got $972,222 with 22 cents, of course, repeating for each minute of the show.
Leroy Jenkins.
Leroy.
Yeah, so D-Dubs.
My
tell us
question is,
the
do you have
breakdown
chicken?
Yeah. Let me get your breakdown on this. Like, how can Amazon make these deals and spend this ridiculous amount of money on original series that have proven that they don't really bring in any cash, right?
Well, they've got Bezos bucks. That helps. But they can't do it from a financially wise position for sure. But I mean, I don't have an answer for you there because this doesn't make financial sense. This is pouring money into an endeavor that will not provide a profit. So perhaps they believe that this is just growing pains and they can get this turned around, but they truly are the newbies on the block, and it is showing. I mean, this is burning cash at a remarkable level. I mean, and also the Russo brothers, you got to think it makes a lot of sense to believe in them. At the same time, if you're a company giving this kind of money, you would think also that you would have some sort of oversight, that you would be able to detect this prior to reaching that point where you say, oh, by the way, we have to do the entire thing over again. Like, you would want to know that 33% of the way in, perhaps, when you say, hey, send us over what you got so far. Let's take a look. And clearly there's no supervisory role taking place. I also find this interesting. This is so interesting because these same brothers have made the writers on the writer's strike furious because of their comments about artificial intelligence and how they believe that movies will be produced within the next 2 years, at least partially using artificial intelligence, which has just infuriated the writers who greatly fear Chat GPT and other things.
Indeed. So Odin, the Russo brothers have made it a habit of making ridiculously expensive streaming stuff after their stint at Marvel. So like you have Extraction on Netflix. You have The Gray Man on Netflix, which was like a $200 to $250 million production. And now you have Citadel on Amazon, which is, if the reports are to be believed, 300 to 350 million. The same amount of money that it took to make Indiana Jones 5 went into this series. And we've speculated that for Indiana Jones 5 to break even, it's got to hit $1 billion. So how do you justify a season 2 of a show like this?
You don't. That is the simple answer. You really can't. I mean, you kind of hit the nail on the head with the Bezos bucks because that's all they have at this point. That's one of the issues with streaming in today's world is that you're making shows and spending money for yourself. And so you're expecting to make some of that money back with subscribers, keeping them or getting new ones. But here's the big issue. I did some quick math on this. So Rings of Power reportedly costs about $60 million per episode. That's Lord of the Rings. That's a huge name, right? I've never heard of Citadel. Is this an original show?
Yes, it's an original series for Amazon.
Okay. So you're spending about the same amount of money per episode, and you're spending it for about 6 episodes. And so you think about how much they're spending on this show, comparing it to what they spent.
Technically, it was 14. It was 8 plus 6. Right?
Okay.
'Cause they had to reshoot it.
Okay.
So
Still though. I mean, when you're looking at the actual total budget, though, right? Because obviously, yeah, if you're going to break down each of those individual episodes, the budget itself, though, equating to essentially what they spent on Lord of the Rings, on Rings of Power, and we know how well that show did, right? It blows my mind, right? It blows my mind because it would make sense if I were to hear this number, and I think it was actually half. I think Stranger Things was like $30 million an episode or something like that. I think about that and I think, okay, that show was able to get brand new people onto that platform for Netflix, right? Was able to bring new people on, hold people over. We know that Rings of Power didn't really do that. And seeing that as I've not heard of Citadel until really now, you're thinking to yourself, wait a minute, they spent $300+ million on a show, and a lot of people just haven't even heard of it, probably aren't even watching it. I would love to know their ratings, like how many people are actually watching that show. It's insane. It honestly is insane. And I really hope we get to a point, and we are starting to see it, right? Whether it's with the Targets of the world or the Anheuser-Busch's of the world. I'm hoping that we start to see it we're seeing it to a certain extent with Disney, but these other companies too, where they start to see their shareholders turn on them, because that's the only way that anything is actually going to change, is if the shareholders start to say, no, you're losing us billions of dollars here. And even though we have money to lose, we don't like losing money. And I'm hoping and praying that that happens soon, because especially with the writer strike happening, this would be the perfect time in society for there to be enough movement in different areas to cause a collapse for these companies. Because when they get out of the strike, maybe that could actually influence some of the terms, and you might actually find yourself coming out of it stronger with better writers. Do I think that's going to happen? No, but man, I hope it does, because I can't take this nonsense anymore.
The longer the writer's strike goes, the more likely your scenario becomes.
Yeah, absolutely.
So
and I also, just to add with, well, sorry, I was just going to add to it with Amazon. It reminded me about how they spent $120 million to buy the rights to air the film, and then spent on marketing too, and didn't make any money. So they're just bleeding money.
So Matt Vader 74, this guy Josh Applebaum, who was so bad the Russos had to fire him and reshoot his entire show. So he was an executive producer on the Michael Bay Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles movies. He was an executive producer on the Tom Clancy film Without Remorse, starring Michael B. Jordan. But his latest opus was as executive producer on the Cowboy Bebop Netflix live-action series.
That's fascinating.
And this is the guy that the Russos were like, I like the cut of your jib. We're going to
I've literally watched none of this. I've watched none of this guy's stuff. I've watched just enough to say, nah, fuck that. I'm not going to watch that. So yeah, I'm not the guy to talk about this guy. It's ridiculous. But don't ask me stupid questions, Matthew.
We are talking about the Russos, where we have like Extraction.
Extraction was good. Extraction was pretty cool. Extraction 2 looks pretty
amazing.
Dope.
Yeah. The Gray Man wasn't good.
No.
But generally we tend to be pretty positive about the Russos. Why do you think this project went so far afield?
I don't know. I'm not a bookkeeper. Why you ask me this stuff? It's like, why do you think?
Because you're a smart man, and we want your insights.
No, I'm not. I'm not any of those things. I barely have time to watch the shows.
But you're not a man.
No,
I said you're a smart man. You said I'm not any of those things, and I'm like, wait a minute.
Well, I'm a man. I'm a man.
At the beginning of the live stream, Odin, Vader switched genders briefly.
Yeah, well, because Brian's not here.
You're taking the. Oh yeah, you got to be our gender representation.
Here, so I got to be our shield. But
okay,
I don't even know how to do that right. I'm kind of slow.
I acknowledge you.
Somebody called me uninformed in the chat up above, and this is a very true statement. It's a very true statement.
Vader, what you need to do is take a giant sip of whatever remaining coffee you have. Caffeinate. Oh no, we're doomed. Never mind. It's done for. I thought it might give you the courage to step forward.
This is the kind of topics that Kadish lives for, because he can intelligently talk about them with his big scientist brain to you guys who live this stuff, and then he asks me questions, and I just like a full on artard, and it's just I can't do it. I just I'm
big head muscle, so smart, man.
And I sit here the what? I sit here and I just read the chat, and I was like, oh, this is fascinating. It's like, okay, good. Yeah, so that's
glad you guys enjoy it.
This is Vader's slow man moment for the show. So thank you, Kadish. I appreciate that. Love you, man.
It's that
every moment of the show is a slow moment.
So let's talk about metaphysics and essentialism real quick, guys.
Yeah, throw some quantum physics in there, and the Russo brothers make eye candy movies, right? So whatever. Then those cost a lot of money.
Matt, would you describe yourself as a proportionalist or a consequentialist?
Yes.
More of an existentialist.
Okay.
All right. So real quick before we move on, I want to highlight the super chat from JRG Projects for $20. Thank you, JRG Projects. Really appreciate it. Wow. Whose bright idea was to make a cartoon like Lower Decks live action? Paramount hit pay dirt with Picard season 3, and now this is what they come up with. Glad I have all the classic series from the 90s to aughts on physical media. I can tell you exactly whose bright idea it was.
Uh-huh.
You ready for it?
Uh-huh.
Oscar winner Akiva Goldsman.
Yeah.
Strange New Worlds is his baby. It has been his baby. He's also responsible for Picard season 1 and 2.
I believe Strange New Worlds is also supposed to be canon in the Star Trek universe, if I am not mistaken. So,
what can someone give me the quick wrap up of that one? Because I don't quite understand. What do they do with it?
They're bringing Boimler and the other main character from the show are having an appearance in Strange New Worlds.
So you missed it. And so these two characters are normally in the animated version of Star Trek called Lower Decks.
Okay.
They are making an appearance in season 2 of Strange New Worlds as their characters from the show. These are the voice actors who do them on the cartoon.
I do find that interesting as a concept.
But their characters are from the 25th century, and Strange New Worlds happens in the original series timeline. So everyone's like, how is this possible?
Some timey-wimey nonsense going on.
Oh, exactly. So, guys, speaking of writing, let's talk a little bit about James Cameron.
Oh, someone who can't write. Awesome.
Terminator.
Yes.
I would argue that
he used to. Sorry, I should have corrected myself. He used to be able to write.
Yeah, another topic I just don't care about. So fun.
We're going to talk Avatar, Matt, okay?
Yeah, so James Cameron recently came out at Dell Tech World where he was on stage being interviewed. And he basically said that he started writing a new Terminator movie 3 months ago, but now he's putting it on hold because he wants to see how the real world AI shakes out before he finishes it. I don't know if that's because he wants the AI to finish the script for him, or
what kind of time frame is he looking at here? Like, is this does he know something we don't?
He needs to talk to George R.R. Martin about that, saying, "Hey, finish the book that way, man."
There you go.
Should I be really worried about AI in the next 6 months? I mean, I don't know what the time frame is we're dealing with here.
But
it'd be like Kadish going, "Yeah, I started writing Earthman Jack again 6 months ago, but I'm not now. I'm waiting for the AI world to catch up to it."
I was going to write about World War III, but I'm going to wait the next 6 weeks, see how it pans out. Everybody's like, "What?"
So one of the interesting things that about this is that James Cameron has been tangentially involved in the last 2 Terminator films, Genesis and Dark Fate, where basically he just kind of came on set and gave it his blessing and said like, yeah, sure, like whatever. He's basically been checked out of this franchise since T2, right? Like that was basically like, I'm done with the franchise. But this is the first time that he's actually returned in a significant role where he's writing the new one. Now, after the disaster of Dark Fate, where it basically killed the franchise because, if you didn't like it, you were a misogynist, and the female quasi Terminator supposedly scared the shit out of every man on the planet. And the director basically flat out said like, "Hey, don't come see my movie, incels."
Okay,
but it'll work for Little Mermaid.
This is something that could potentially relaunch the franchise if Cameron decides that he's actually going to make the movie himself. So I wanted to get your guys' take on this. Odin, what do you think of Cameron returning to Terminator, especially after committing to 5 Avatar films?
I'm actually, to be honest, I'm surprised is my initial reaction, because I thought he was going to end his career in Pandora. Like after he signed that contract, and he's been doing nothing but Avatar for the last 10 plus years, and he's going to continue going on with it. So I was surprised just to hear that was even a possibility, but also because of his tenure now in the Avatar universe and how he's been so obsessed and focused with it. I don't trust him as a writer anymore. Right? Had this been maybe when the first Avatar film came out, or even not long after, I would have still had enough of, hey, you know what? This is the first real movie from him that I'm really not a huge fan of, as far as, especially narratively. There's other things I can go back to still, but now it's like, okay, I've got an Avatar 1 and 2. You're just staying in this universe. It seems like we're going to get nothing but pretty much the same stuff. So I don't think he has it anymore to be able to pull off a Terminator 3. Now, I'm going to say right now, is that film, if he ever does it, going to make money? It might. I mean, when James Cameron is the one behind the helm, he knows how to work out those deals and communicate with other people to get people to go see his movies. But when it comes to whether it's going to be good or not, or whether I have any interest in it at this point in his career, I would say no.
He would kind of have to retcon everything after Terminator 2, right? And do a direct sequel to Terminator 2.
No, don't. No.
Yeah,
That would be
Please
like
do.
that would be the only way I would have any interest in
Yeah,
a new
Well,
James Cameron.
it'd be
Terminator
fascinating
movie.
to watch because
Yeah, with time travel, anything's
You
possible.
can do that
Yeah.
with time travel, I guess.
But D-dubs. So obviously, Terminator is a Fox property, as is Avatar, which means that
Mhm.
Disney is going to be the one to produce this new Terminator movie.
Ugh.
Should it actually go anywhere? So how would Disney screw this up?
So there's a very interesting thing about James Cameron and his relationship with Disney. And that is that, yes, Disney distributed Avatar, The Way of Water, but James Cameron actually maintains almost total creative control, and his company maintains the rights to Avatar in such a way that Disney reaps very little reward in comparison to something that would be made traditionally by them. I don't know how this works with Terminator. I don't know if James Cameron holds on to vast special carve-outs via a contract. We would have to look into that, and that's not an area that I'm an expert on. But I do know that when it comes to Avatar, it's not a traditional situation for Disney. Now, in terms of why would James Cameron want to do this, or will he do it? James Cameron has James Cameron money. It's special when your name is applied to that kind of a category and you are a party of one. He has, well, let's say this. Tom Cruise has entered into a special category of actor where Tom Cruise can essentially do anything Tom Cruise wants to do. And James Cameron is that way from a director's position. I don't know why he would want to do Terminator, but he can do that if he wants to. If he wants to do, if he wants to resurrect Pee-wee's Big Adventure, he can do it. James Cameron can do anything he would like to do, and we'll probably all either go watch it or listen to everybody else who did.
How old is James Cameron?
I think he's in
to
his
say
60s or 70s.
he's
I-
timeless.
He
He's
is.
the
I
king of the
feel.
world.
I feel like he should be
68.
90, but I know he's not.
Born in
So Vader,
1954.
Schwarzenegger has publicly come out and says that he's
Mhm.
done with Terminator. And he's not
Yeah.
doing it anymore. But I read Cameron's where he wants to see where AI ends up as being basically like, how can I use AI to deep fake Schwarzenegger?
Right. They don't need
Visually,
Schwarzenegger
AI, yeah.
anymore.
Yeah. So
maybe they cut him a check for his likeness and say thanks, man. And
You can
Move
voice
on.
over.
well,
he can do that.
if Cameron were able to do like an AI generated Schwarzenegger for
Mhm.
his next Terminator movie, do you think it would be worth checking out?
Sure. If it's a good script and everything, yeah, for sure. Why not? I mean, the AI now is to the point where we can have these actors play their young selves. Look at Indiana Jones coming out. There's a young Harrison Ford in that movie. Why they wouldn't be able to do that with Arnold and the Terminator? There's no reason why they couldn't. So the question of it being good that's hard to answer. I don't know. It depends on how it is.
Well,
So,
here's the thing, right? So like we had the situation where the Rusos pissed people off by saying that in 2 years they could see an AI generated movie where
Mhm.
it's all AI actors, stuff like that. To me, Cameron, like if he's able to recreate 80s Arnold Schwarzenegger
sure.
and make the type of like Terminator movie that he wants to, and he could just type into a prompt how he wants the AI Schwarzenegger to act, and it looks and sounds exactly like him. Because the thing about Cameron is that he's always about pushing the technological envelope,
Right.
right?
That's true.
And so like if he's able to basically utilize AI to make a movie where he doesn't have to deal with actors and stuff like that, where he can just basically
He could
control
be the
them.
first to
I
make
think-
an AI
Yeah.
movie, a
Yeah.
completely AI movie.
Maybe is that
Completely
what he
AI
wants?
movie.
So he wants to
A
make
meta
cartoon.
message.
He
An
wants to make
AI
a-
movie about AI. Yeah.
He wants to make a non-animated animated movie.
Exactly.
You know, I
Just
think
like a
Arnold
cartoon.
Schwarzenegger would be very open to this because if you've read his recent interview, I feel sorry for the man. And, that sounds funny coming from somebody, who has dramatically less wealth than he does. But he talks about in an interview, and I don't have the article in front of me, but he talks about how he still does the poses from his days of bodybuilding, but he does it alone. And he said that it actually brings him to tears because he's so saddened because he's 75.
Yeah.
And no matter what he does, he cannot stay in the physique that he has tried to maintain his whole life. And you have to feel sorry for somebody who, is grieving that loss. He truly is. And so I think for the opportunity to return and see his physique as it was, I think might be alluring to him enough to bring him back as a voice actor.
No, he wouldn't even be a voice actor, right? Because the AI would just scan his voice and recreate it.
Well, that's a good point as well.
Yeah.
So they'll sample him then.
The whole point of what Cameron said about where he wants to see where AI is going before he finishes writing the script, I believe, is how is AI going to affect movie making, where basically you can recreate the voice, where like you don't even need a voice actor. You can just type it into a prompt and it reads it with inflection and all that stuff. You can use AI to basically create any special effect you want, to create any actor you want, all this stuff. Where basically he's like, if I write a script for a new Terminator movie, and I can do it completely using AI. I don't have to have a cinematographer. I don't have to have animators. I don't have to have actors. I just need a computer that can create all this stuff that's in my head. And I can just sit there and type prompts all day until I get the exact movie I want. I think that's what he was saying.
But that's also,
I don't think that's far off.
That's also a reason that all of these people in Hollywood are striking right now. That's why the actors are going to be striking here soon. It's why Hollywood is being torn apart right now by artificial intelligence, because pretty soon we're not going to need writers. We're not going to need actors. We're not going to need directors. We're just going to need computer nerds sitting at their computer desk making movies. And
prompting.
It's a fascinating thing. It really is. I don't know what the answer is. Can they make a Terminator movie? They can probably make a Terminator movie right now with the technology they have. So I find it all very fascinating personally, but I also, I'm kind of understanding why these writers and these people are there. There's some panic going on here. Because anybody on this panel right now can go to ChatGPT right now and go, hey, ChatGPT, write me a script for a 10-minute long YouTube video about why Disney sucks. And then it'll go, okay. And it'll go, and there you have it. With a few minor tweaks, you have a video script. And it's not hard to do. It's just,
here's an interesting thing about artificial intelligence and ChatGPT. I was listening to a lecture from a guy who has really worked extensively with artificial intelligence, and he was discussing how he had used hypnotic patterns, so strategies that you would use to hypnotize somebody in order to trick ChatGPT into bypassing its safeguards that they've put it on where they won't allow it to imagine. Now, has anybody heard that lecture yet?
Well, I know that Tim Pool talked about that.
Okay, so
there's a chat in here I want to highlight really quick. It says from Tina Guzman, I like the human factor in movies, not a computer that generates a movie. But the thing is, very soon you're not going to be able to tell the difference.
Yeah.
And that's the problem. So
the interesting thing here is once we get to the point where, and I don't know who's going to do this, but there's no stopping, right? It's an arms race. You can't stop it, because if you stop it in North America, if you legislate it here, they're not going to in some other place. And so this will never stop. The genie is out of the bottle.
Let me just highlight another chat here. So the difference is that movies have just traditionally been huge, logistical productions, right? Where you require millions of dollars, lots of people, lots of locations, stuff like that. And what Nicholas Sheridan points out here is it's going back to simply just an artist with canvas and paint. For the longest time, the greatest artists in history, they just needed paint and something to paint on in order to communicate their vision. And now computers are becoming the new canvas. AI is becoming the new paint. And sooner or later, eventually you will have film students sitting there creating 2-hour-long epics, 3-hour-long epics, original series that are 6 and 8 episodes long, using nothing but a computer and just their imaginations about dialing down each individual performance from an AI actor, each individual location from an AI generated thing. Like the latest version of Photoshop, you can literally just highlight something and hit like generate, and then like it extrapolates stuff using like the new Photoshop AI. And it's amazing. And you're going to start seeing that translated into video very soon.
Right.
Yeah.
And so like at a certain point, it becomes the most freeing technology for an artist, but also the most scary technology for an industry.
I wonder, I can see like in the near future hearings and stuff in Washington, and the end thing will be like stuff that was generated using AI will have to have like some kind of separate label put on it or something. You know, it's like this was made by people, this was made by artificial intelligence. You know, and
Well, copyright becomes a question too.
correct, it does. It's very it's a very strange
likeness,
thing.
right? Like eventually actors or models could just license their look,
but
their voice.
AI could create someone that looks just enough like somebody, but isn't them. And then the question becomes, can you sue them for using your likeness if there's just enough subtleties to make it seem like someone that's completely different?
Can't wait for that new Star Wars movie starring Frank Sinatra and Elvis coming out.
Well, let me pretend to be someone in the 70s describing what the internet will be like. But I think in the 2040s and perhaps sooner, but I think you're going to come home and you're going to tell your computer that you want to watch Star Wars and you want to see Luke Skywalker be a hero and blah, 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 blah. And it's, you've already paid for the license for Star Wars and for these characters from Disney. And so then it just generates a movie for you right then and there.
Don't forget.
I don't think it'll be as good as the best storytellers who work with it. And that will be the difference in the official stuff versus your own, stuff that you decide you want to watch at home.
Yeah, I can see Matt Vader coming home after a hard day of work and telling the AI he wants to watch the latest Geode, a Star Wars story film where The Rock plays Geode.
I'm going to come home and I'm going, hey, computer, Kadish was a real pain in the ass today. So I need something to make me relax. Yeah. So
I want to.
Can Geo be played by Sly? Can it be played by Sly so we can have the Rocky voice, please?
You want
Vader's like I want to watch a Sarah Palin pornography. Can you generate that for me? AI?
Nailing Palin. Yeah.
I was going to say he wants a Jason Voorhees film where the person being killed has the face of Matthew Kadish on it every single time.
But you guys know that there's no foresight in politicians. I mean, these are octogenarians who are largely completely divorced from technology. We won't see any kind of legislation in regards to AI truly until it has an impact on their elections. And then they'll overreach to ludicrous levels, and then it won't stop it anyway because, really, this thing's escaped.
This chat made me laugh too. Governor of California is going to be ChatGPT. The governor of California already is, my friend.
No, dude, ChatGTP could run that state better.
Probably better. Yeah.
Oh, absolutely.
Why are you all leaving? Why are you leaving my state?
Come back.
Taxes.
What are you doing? But also too, like with the AI thing, going back to movies, who has the most money? It's the studios, it's the studio execs. So they're the ones that are going to be spending it on trying to help further develop this because they're looking at this writer strike saying, man, you know what? If we had this AI, there's no writer strike.
And that's what the writers know too.
Yeah.
Well, also, you don't need to be in the union to be a writer. Like writers are a dime a dozen in Hollywood. Everyone has a screenplay. So like if they have the technology to replace them, they could bring in scrubs and the unions would be powerless to stop it.
Yep.
The issue that the unions have right now is that they actually have a corner on the talent market because all the best writers in Hollywood are part of the union. But if Hollywood wanted to, they could just say screw the unions and then take in, writers from outside who want to break into the industry and just replace them. Writers are a dime a dozen. Yeah.
Because there's good ones.
They're
it's like with
actors. Writers are the most easily replaceable part of a production, right? But the quality of the writers is the real question here. And most of the WGA members are not quality writers. And right now, during the economic downturn that's going on, and with studios tightening their belts, these unions are coming out wanting more money and more safety and more security as studios are laying off thousands and thousands of people trying to save money. It's the dumbest time to be doing this if you're in one of these unions.
Well, except Matt, here's what I think is happening. I think they realized that their leverage was about to decrease dramatically as AI became better. And I think that's why they pulled the trigger when they did.
But that brings us to our final topic of the day,
Oh my
which is
gosh.
basically Marvel movies are being delayed
No.
left and right.
No.
So there's
Oh,
a
no.
story from Deadline where
Say
basically
it ain't
Marvel
so.
paused on the Thunderbolts production due to the writer's strike. But in addition to that,
Not
like
Thunderbolts.
they've already had like Wonder Man and Blade be paused. Daredevil, Born Again has been paused. So like all this stuff that Marvel was kind of counting on to like go into production and come out on a schedule has been pushed back because of these strikes. And it's throwing them for a loop. And they've already been up against the ropes because of like their botched rollouts for phase 4 and 5. So Odin, is this going to hurt Marvel that they're pausing all these shows and movies?
I mean, they were hurt before any of this. I mean, you go back to Ant-Man and the Ant-Man the Wasp: Quantumania. Really the only bright spot they've had has been Guardians, but that's because it's within Guardians, and there's a lot of characters that people generally like, and the word of mouth on it happened to actually have been pretty good. But what do you have going on this year? You got the Marvels coming out. I just don't see how that film is as let's just say I don't think it's going to be as successful as the first Captain Marvel, which made over $1 billion, which again, it just can't.
Well, you didn't have to eat pineapple pizza on that one, though.
I didn't, but oh man, I just would not have wanted that.
You didn't do it right. You got to do it again.
Oh
you
gosh, here we go. Bring it all up again.
Says the communist sympathizer.
That's right.
But yeah, I don't think it's going to hurt them because I think they're already hurt to such a degree that if anything, especially with the writer's strike, this could just end up being, all right, maybe we need to slowly, reevaluate things, bring new people on, and have a pause. Hey, ever thought about that? Having just a nice little pause and letting things actually build up so that people want to see these things again? But
D-Dubs, I wanted to ask you, how does this affect Marvel and Disney's bottom line? Because if they're pausing these things, they still have contracts, they still have like schedules, all this stuff costs money, and the longer it's delayed, the more money it's going to cost them. How does stuff like this affect Disney, and is it going to put pressure on them to come to the bargaining table with these unions?
Well, both sides are getting more and more reason to bring this to an end, but in my own viewpoint, I would say that the writers are actually more likely to succumb versus the studios. The writers, I've been following quite a few of their statements and their Twitter accounts, what they've been saying, and there's not a small number of them who have been reaching out for money because their personal bank accounts are low because they blew all their stimmy checks and now they're on strike. And so I don't know in terms of whether or not this brings it to a wrap closer, but I would say that in terms of the MCU, in terms of Marvel, this makes it less likely that we will get more obscure content and more likely that we'll go directly into the Fantastic Four and X-Men, as the studio will be desiring to turn the corner as fast as possible and to resurrect what is clearly a flailing franchise. We're looking at a potential here where Marvel may not make money again until next Christmas with Deadpool 3. I mean, look at their roster of content they have. Guardians is unlikely to make a profit, although that's a budget issue. But you're looking at the Marvels. How poorly will the Marvels do? And then it doesn't get any better. And so I, for one, the only thing that truly saddens me is that if Marvel is no longer able to reach into their Z-tier characters, we're going to miss out on fantastic content like 3D Man, Beta Ray Bill, Mandrill, Hellcow, and Angar the Screamer. Characters you've never heard about, but Marvel probably would have gender swapped anyway.
What about Squirrel Girl? Squirrel Girl in that group?
She's already a girl. They don't need her.
I really want a Squirrel Girl movie.
I've at least
Only
heard Beta Ray
she
Bill.
can be trans and get some extra nuts.
Well, I think she already is. So
Squirrel
I don't know.
jokes.
Yeah.
Vader, do you think that we're losing anything as audience members for
No.
Thunderbolts and Wonder Man and
No, not a thing.
Blade being pushed back?
I'm actually really happy about the strike because it's given me a chance to get caught up on all these old Survivor seasons that I've missed. I'm looking forward into going back into the Survivor archives, and I'm going to get on Pluto and start watching the Stargate channel.
Oh, you love Pluto.
I do love my Pluto. So yeah, Survivor and Pluto TV. There's a lot of stuff on there that's going to take me a lot of time to get through while this writer strike's going. So I don't care. You know,
you guys
bring on our AI overlords. You know, it's going to be amazing.
It really says something that the writers struck and the general population has went, meh.
Yeah, who cares?
Really, that's
you guys should have seen Vader come into the office the other day where he was like, "Have you guys heard of this thing called Pluto?
It's
got
awesome.
so much."
Was
great
it 2 weeks
stuff
ago
on
that you
it."
were talking about it too? Like you were.
Yeah,
like,
dude, it's better stuff on there than Cox. Cox sucks. It's
Well, that was your first
That's
problem.
our,
by
that's our
getting that
cable
company.
company.
Oh yeah,
in Vegas is Cox.
It's it. It's the only one.
Louisiana
that needs
had
more
the same.
context next time.
It was awful. Yeah. See, it wasn't as odd to me because in Louisiana, that's also like New Orleans. That is the only major one. But it sucked. It was terrible.
I think there's literally 37 seasons of Survivor I haven't watched, so I'm really looking forward to getting.
There's a lot of seasons of Survivor.
Yeah, and then if I get out of that, I'll go to the Amazing Race. So that'll be fun to catch up on all that stuff too.
If you exhaust this to the point you're just watching old seasons of Price is Right, that's when we're doing an intervention.
I quit watching that when Bob Barker left.
If it doesn't have Plinko or the Mountain Climber, I'm out for the episode. I'll just tell
Come
you.
on down.
Rod
Death
Rodney.
Angel-
That's a name we
Death-
should remember.
Death Angel Shadow pointed out, is it now Squirks?
Squirks.
That's great. I love it.
Non-binary squirrel person? Squirks?
Somebody
That's
make
someone
that
who needs to be a writer, by the way, in Hollywood. Death Angels, you go get in there as soon as this thing's over.
for sure.
Indeed. All right, guys, we had a lot to talk about today, and we talked about it. And I want to thank Odin for showing up today. We missed you, buddy. It's been a while since you've been on the Saturday stream, but it should be good. Where can people find out more about you? And do you have any final thoughts you'd like to share with our audience?
Yeah, well, firstly, I'm just glad to be back. It really was tough being off for a couple of weeks because I had graduation. 2 weeks ago was graduation. It's just insane that we're already in summer. And then last weekend we were family vacation. So glad to be back. It was sad where I saw on my calendar, I'm gonna miss the first half of the show. But baby Thor needs to socialize a little bit. But in general, yeah, there's a lot of stuff going on right now, and I was thinking back the other day about this, how I'm so happy to actually be having box office numbers to talk about, because I was remembering the dark times of just even a couple years ago when I was like, oh, what do I talk about now? That's like kind of the main thing I talk about. What in the world am I going to do? And so I'm glad to have that back. But you can check me out over at OMB Reviews on YouTube, Odyssey, and Rumble. Also on Twitter. Next week, I'm launching my, since I am now in summer mode, I'm launching my morning podcast from 10 to 11 on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. One of them will actually be on the OMB Report. So I'm bringing that back finally. Haven't done a video there in like 7 months, but talking about news and politics. And always great to be on. Thank you all again for having me.
Yeah, and with election season starting up,
I know.
Should be fun.
I'll be talking about it all the way up until August, and then right in the heart of it, back to school.
Yeah. WDW, your first time on the Saturday stream. Thank you for coming on. Do you have any?
I feel that I have a bit more sodium in my system now. I feel good again. Electrolytes.
Where can people find
flowing.
more of you? And do you have any final thoughts?
Well, if they could possibly even stand any more of me, I'm not sure. They may say, who's this guy taking up the oxygen? We want more of the other three.
No, I really enjoyed hearing you talk today.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much. It's been a pleasure to participate in the conversation. I really appreciate the reaching out to me and having me on. It's been a joy.
We're gonna have you on more because you drown out Kadish, and it's great. I love it.
So that's the standard, eh?
Yep.
But folks can find me on thatparkplace.com. Add it to your bookmarks. That's where we cover everything that should be fun. Not always is, but we cover it if it should be. And then, of course, on the WDW Pro channel, we do videos every 10:30 a.m. and 4:30 p.m. Eastern time slot, daily, 7 days a week, as well as 5 to 7 on Thursdays. We do the Pro Show Live, where we invite in guests just like this. We have a lot of fun covering all the things in entertainment, travel, tourism, etc. We like to try to nudge culture in a positive direction. And I'm not talking about Culture Casino, by the way. We already nudge him, but it's for other purposes.
We need to get him back on soon. It'd be fun.
I got a very nice DM from your producer saying that he was pulling clips and that I was quite witty on your show the other day.
Jonas J. Campbell, yes.
Yes. Yeah, so
Yes.
that made me feel good to be
Well,
recognized.
it was a great honor to have you on the Pro Show Live, and to get to revel a bit in the fact that you were right all along when it came to Indiana Jones. It's been a long time for that comeuppance to come this way, but it's nice to see it finally be there. And should you see a giant boulder rolling anywhere near your studio, we'll know who has been at the helm of this pattern of break-ins you guys have had.
Mangold.
Well, we're not going to know for sure until the movie comes out and we get to see it ourselves. Matt Vader 74.
Yeah.
Any final thoughts? And what do we have going on this week on the Salty Nerd podcast?
I have no idea what we got going on. What do we have? Warrior reviews. Warrior from on HBO Max or what is it called now? Max.
It's called Max.
Yeah,
Just Max.
So just Max. We are working our way towards season 3 with our weekly Warrior reviews. That's a really fantastic show on Max from our friend Jonathan Chopper. If you have not seen it, go watch it and then watch our reviews of the show. It's a lot of fun, a lot of kung fu, a lot of rated R HBO action. Super good show there. And we're ramping production back up at the Salty Nerd podcast with the studio is back up and running, and we had a whole day full of recording this week. But that was mostly to get caught up on Warrior and our live stream. And it's going to be more of the same next week. I think we've got a stuff coming up.
Quantumania review.
Yeah, Quantumania review coming out. We're going to be talking about The Machine and comedy, and his comedy on a comeback coming up soon. And
did you guys install the floor spears like I suggested?
We got some trap doors in here. Yeah.
Okay, just checking.
Yes. So we didn't tell our chat today, but the guy who robbed us actually returned.
Yeah.
A few days ago and tried to break in again by throwing a rock at our front door window. And luckily, all of our new security measures scared him off. But we got security footage of him, and our security force came out. And
I bet you mean a guy in overalls with a shotgun. That was the security force that scared him off.
Here's the funny part about that story, right? So we got the new alarm system set up, and they call you at home and everything. So we all got a phone call, and we all ignored it. And said, "Oh, there's some spammer trying to call us at 4:30 in the morning." And it was finally the only one who answered the phone was Jude, who is the 4th one on the list, and she had to wake Matt up and go, "Hey, some asshole is trying to steal stuff again." So it's like, I know I was at home, and the phone rang, and all I heard was I have my phone ringer is the Imperial March, so I hear dun 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 dun, and I pushed ignore because I thought it was a spammer, right? I'm like, whatever. I didn't even think about some dude throwing a rock through our front door, but yeah, it was weird.
But you'll have his face and everything.
Well, he was wearing a mask.
Okay.
But
he's
basically,
clearly afraid of COVID. That's the only thing that could be.
Well, we think that it was either just another FU drive-by to like throw a rock at our front door, or he was testing our new security to see what he could get away with. It was
did he spray ageist on the front of your facade?
Maybe. Mangold has his minions sending after us.
Just goes up and takes a leak on our front door.
Yeah.
We got the urine sample, damn it. We're gonna prove it.
But we now have increased lot security. So like the landlords have got a new security company to come out and make sure that they're driving by our place, checking us. We got the ADT alarm system with like their response team, and we've got new locks.
That response team, they're crack.
We're joking that we're the most secure podcast studio in Las Vegas. So it's been an interesting ride. But also on Tuesday, we have a group of special guests joining us on the live stream to talk about this new audio drama on the podcast front called Metal Detective. It's a really cool little 4-episode audio drama that is basically it's like listening to a movie. It's very cool. And they're going to be on our show talking about how they made it and all that good stuff. So 1:30 p.m. Pacific time for the Saltcast IRL here on the Salty Nerd podcast every Tuesday. And also we broadcast our recording stuff on Twitter Spaces. So if you guys are on Twitter and you want to hear our show be recorded live, be sure to follow salty_nerd.
Hopefully we won't overwhelm the servers this week.
Oh, we'll melt them. Yeah.
So,
with your
We're-
alt right content. Mhm.
We're that popular with our communist sympathies
Yeah.
and all
gonna
that
have
stuff.
a DeSantis on and blow it all up. Yeah, that's right.
The
sanctimonious
thing.
You know, I had not thought of that. I had not thought of recording your pre-recorded stuff and having that go onto Twitter as a way to reward
We
fans.
record.
That's a
We
great
record. The entire studio day is basically put out in the raw, unedited, unfiltered through our speakers onto Twitter Spaces. So and we keep a live chat going along with it in our Discord, so people can have fun and interact with us and stuff. It's really raw, guys. It's completely unedited.
I can't
And
wait to
it's
see
only
what Elon does.
And the people
with,
who the people who listen in on Twitter Spaces, they can actually raise their hand, and so like in between recording, we
We'll chat
bring
with
them
them
on
and
and chat with them. And all
I did that a
good
couple
fun
times.
stuff.
It's fun.
You should run late night recordings now, given the pattern of activity you have.
Maybe. But
Yeah.
we want to thank everyone who gave us super chats during this live stream. We're here because of you guys. Gavin Blackburn, 52 movies a year, became a member. Appreciate that. WG also gifted 5 members, so appreciate that as well. Mexican Iron Man, Bob Dorsey, JT Guns, Scotty Dub, the Astronerdboy, and JRG Projects. Thank you so much for the support. We really appreciate that stuff, especially from our salty superstars. You guys are awesome, and you're one of the reasons why we are where we are today. Really appreciate that. Anyway, everyone, tune in next Saturday, same salty time, same salty channel for more saltiness, and with hopefully a more full panel than today. But we had fun anyway, and WDW, we really appreciate you coming out for this. And to everyone else out there, stay salty, my friends.